in numbers very, very quickly. And in our research, we saw that 31% of households in Lagos are connected to the grid. That's by Lagos State's own studies. There is a population of 26 million in Lagos, again by the Lagos State Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. There are currently about 1 gigawatts of power supply in the state, projected to rise to 4,000 gigawatts in about 5 years, which is really all of the power, or more than all the power that are on the grid right now. And we're looking at a 5-year deadline to achieve power for all in Lagos State. And projections indicate that about $33 billion will be required to meet that deadline. And the deadline is not some random number in years. It is actually tied to Goal 7 of the Sustainable Development Goals. And now, the issue of finding the funding to deal all of these developments in this market is really a question of two issues for us: law and contracts. Law and contracts that would give investors the certainty that they will need, the comfort that they will need, that investments will meet the use for which it is raised and will return, essentially in the end, to the investor with the requisite returns that the investor desires. And we have tried to identify some of the key legal issues in the law that should provide that comfort that investors desire. The first of them is found in Section 2 of the law, the objectives of the electricity law itself. You've got commercially sound, well-funded, financially viable electricity market, accessibility to affordable, reliable, and sustainable electricity, investment attraction, innovation, efficient and clear regulatory framework, energy efficiency, demand-side management, competition, and consumer protection. The benefit that we have all had now that all of these transitions are happening in various states with state electricity markets is that we've got the president of the national markets to see where the pitfalls are, where some errors may have been made, where we may have been a little bit too optimistic, and we've got the benefit of that to try to avoid some of the issues that had affected the national market. And a big part of that has been a chronic underinvestment in the infrastructure required to deliver power. And it wasn't some accident. It was directly a result of the fact that investors didn't feel sufficient, didn't have sufficient confidence in the regulatory setup that their investment will find its way back. And in designing in the wording and the language of the electricity law, we think that these objectives, if properly implemented, and we have every confidence that they will create that comfort that investors will require. The other second key factor is an independent regulator. The Honorable Commissioner had introduced the CEO and the other commissioners in the commission. There are other quasi-regulatory bodies in the market also. And then there is, of course, the supervisor, if you like, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. But the independence of LASEC is key to this. And the powers that they have been given is also key to attracting these investments that are required, really. There are various powers to make regulations and orders and guidelines to guide operators in the industry. There are power to give licenses and approval. And something interesting in the law you find is that in every decision that they are empowered to make, there is a mandatory requirement to provide a reason, whether it is a positive decision or a negative decision. And in some instances, like in the case of a revocation or some other punitive or adverse action on an operator, they are mandatorily required to give notice of the decision before the actual making of that decision. And so you don't have a regulator who, in his independence, assumes some position without giving the other party essentially a fair hearing. And then, of course, they are also empowered to be the repository of market data. They are required to also provide some dispute resolution support, mediate, and in some cases, guide parties to an alternative dispute resolution setup the Lagos Multi-Door Courthouse or any other that could deliver decisions very quickly and very fairly between parties in a manner that it doesn't become a zero-sum game. Then, of course, also they have powers of investigation and enforcement, research and development, and tariff regulation. Tariff regulation has been a bit of a key issue in the electricity market nationally also. His Excellency, the Deputy Governor, had talked about what the cost of power is to an average household. The Honorable Commissioner also explained the fact that Lagos not only desires to have power available to all, but to have it at a cost that doesn't ruin the household or the businesses that are taking that power. And the key to achieving that is to find a balance between certain tariffs that will guarantee return on investment and at the same time will also not be overpriced for the customer down the line. And so we think that with this, the way the sector regulator has been set up and the powers that it has been given, it is also a very positive signal to the investment community and the capital market that the Lagos State electricity market is a viable target for the industry. We had a slide that showed Lagos. Yes, that there is this. There's an interesting thing about Lagos State as a market, particularly in the electricity industry. It is, in terms of land mass, not quite the biggest state in Nigeria. In terms of population and population density, it is top. And it's a very good thing in electricity because, I mean, it's still a wires business. For every electron you've got to get to the customer, there is a physical equipment that gets it done. Well, until the smart people figure out how to get electricity wirelessly, that's where we are. So you find that for Lagos State, it's actually its geographical character, if you like, and its population characteristics actually make it a very interesting place to invest because the least distance that you cover or the distance that you have to cover to make an investment in wires and infrastructure actually guarantees you sufficient load to make returns on that investment, as opposed to places that are not as dense in population as Lagos State is. And then we had looked at some of the contractual issues from the law and what those key contracts will be when the law, as the law gets more fully implemented. The top on the list, of course, are the power purchase agreements. Lagos State, at the early stage of the Lagos electricity market conceptualization, I know that a big part of the debate had been whether Lagos was going to have an islanded electricity market without much interaction technically with the national or other states. And it is a very good thing, really, that the law had actually addressed that. And what we have seen, both with the law and with the policy announcements we've heard from the Honorable Commissioner and the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, is that Lagos is going to look to, yes, develop some greenfield generating plants and some new infrastructure, transmission, distribution, but will also look to continue to import electricity from outside the state and from the national grid also. And you've got the use of system agreements where the traders, power purchasers are going to use transmission system of the TCN or any new build transmission infrastructure to get power down to the distribution companies. And then, of course, the distribution use of system agreements where, again, traders, retailers, and a bit more on those two later, traders and retailers, will use the distribution system of the distribution companies to get power down to the customers. And then the franchise agreement. The franchise agreement, it's interesting because one of the things that had happened nationally, I know that NEC at some point tried to pass a regulation on franchising and then changed their mind at some point and then said, hey, everyone go try and contract your franchising arrangements, and then they released some guidelines to guide the parties. Because they recognize that essentially it's got to be not something you just legislate on by fiat, but something you allow parties to freely allocate to themselves what the commercial risks will be. But the good thing with franchising is that it allows the franchisee to try to make investments in whatever downstream infrastructure that will be needed to get power to the customers and takes the franchisor, in this case, the distribution companies, takes that burden away from them and enables power to begin to get down the line to the customers that it's eventually targeted at. We've identified a few contracting risks that the market will have inevitably, and which the law has thankfully allowed parties to deal with. Liquidity and collections, it has been the biggest perhaps challenge in the electricity supply industry nationally. And we've got, in the last 10 years or so since the privatization, more than 10 years actually, you've got this ballooning deficit in the markets. Payments across the chain have been consistently underpaid, and it's been growing year on year. And you find that the way the law is designed is to give a clean slate to Lagos. And thankfully, that actually started even with the Electricity Act itself, which recognized that where you are having any subsidiary companies or operators in a state market who may be inheriting or succeeding acquiring the interest of a holding company existing nationally before, the transfer of the assets and liabilities has to be structured in a way that the state market is not burdened by legacy debts or legacy liquidity issues. Collections, very closely tied to these liquidity issues. The efficiency hasn't been as well as it should be. You find in the electricity law now that there is a mandatory requirement for metering and investment in technology that will guarantee 100% collections and energy efficiency, and also essentially store and be able to produce data that will help and aid decision making. Tariffs, we think, are the other contracting risks. How do you balance affordability and cost recovery? How do you balance the interest of an investor and that of the consumer? And when we get to the slides on the opportunities in the capital market, we will explain a bit more why we think the capital markets help in that regard. Fuel inputs, another contracting risk, both from in terms of the molecules for gas-fired power plants and also the transportation risks. And it's a good thing that in the law now, particular attention is being given to that part of it. And I know that in the description of the strategic implementation plan and the Lagos State policy that the ministry is required to produce and update from time to time, it requires that attention is paid not just from the generation end of the market, but even prior to the generation, the fuel inputs. And I mean, there's been the argument really about whether the fuel part is part of the regulatory framework of the electricity industry. Whether or not, wherever you stand on that debate, is not meant to be academic. The fact is that as far as electricity to the final customer is concerned, attention in the contracting has got to be paid right from the point of the fuel inputs to guarantee that the fuel is available, the payments for the fuel are made at the right time, and power then flows along the chain to the final consumer. Construction risk. The Honorable Commissioner had mentioned the two bid processes that are ongoing in Lagos at the moment for grid scale and gas turbines, and grid scale renewable energy and gas turbines. And attention has got to be paid in designing the EPC contracting and the construction contracts that will follow those bids to ensure that deadlines are met, standards are maintained, health and safety issues are complied with, environmental factors are also all put into the contract. Then, of course, availability and uptime. 100% really is the target. Is that possible? Yes. And I mean, what you have had, if you like, in the national market is that in all of the contracting that had been going on, there is an unacceptable level of contract delinquency. People don't do what they sign on to doing, and then there are no consequences for those. And the idea of having efficient contracts is not to frighten a party away from the performance, but to give you the incentive to do what you have signed on to do. So it starts from ensuring that you have got the capacity to do what you are contracting to do. So the Clean Lagos electricity market and the way the law has been structured, and this is for the benefit of the capital market investors listening in, is is been designed to ensure that contracting is structured in a way that parties take on the risks that they have the capacity to carry, and that there are adequate provisions to prevent delinquency, and that when that does occur, that there is the appropriate remedy for whoever suffers the results of that delinquency. Now, part of what enables or attracts capital market investment in any market really is information availability. How available are the relevant information that an investor needs to know in making its decisions? And the law has been very clear in addressing this information asymmetry. And you've got several provisions in the law that requires the Electricity Regulatory Commission as a first step. I believe the language of the law was actually before the commission goes into operations, it's got to establish an internet portal for public communication and interaction, not just to publish and post information, but to have a system where users are able to interact with the commission, demand information, ask questions, and get their reply. And there's technology for all of that now. You've got the electricity market reports that the commission is required to publish, I believe, on the 30th of April in every year. And then, of course, the integrated electricity policy and strategic implementation plan, which is the responsibility of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources to announce, implement, review periodically. There's the publication and register of licenses that the commission is also required to maintain. And again, I had mentioned earlier that one of the innovative provisions of the law is that it requires the commission to be fully transparent throughout its decision-making process. And even when it's required to take any adverse or punitive decision, it is given opportunity by publication to whoever is the target of that decision to make representations that could impact that decision. And then, of course, there are several provisions in the law on public hearing and invitation for memoranda to guide whatever decision that the commission has to make. And then the compulsory metering. We put it also here as part of transparency provisions. I mean, we had mentioned the fact that it is a collection efficiency issue, but it's also an information asymmetry issue. How much power are you consuming? How much power is being get delivered to your homes and businesses? How available are the information you need to make in determining your energy efficiency behavior as an electricity consumer? And now the law has made it completely illegal as a starting point to supply power, to trade in power, to receive electricity without a meter. Now, to the more direct issues of capital market investment in the sector. Why the capital markets as a source of funding for the sector? At the beginning of my presentation, I had referenced some of the comments by His Excellency the Deputy Governor and the Honorable Commissioner about balancing affordability with cost recovery and investment recovery. And a key characteristic of the capital market is that it is a source of patience and long-term capital. And one of the parameters that the Commission is going to have to deal with in their tariff regulation is the cost of capital. And if you are, as an operator, if you're able to have recourse to the capital markets in getting the investment you need, you're able to spread your recovery over a longer period. That factor going into the tariff is going to allow that balance that we've been talking about throughout this morning between cost recovery and affordability. Power is not meant to be free, right? It's a utility. Everyone should have it. But there is also significant amount of investment required to get that power down to everyone. But then it should not be in such a way that consumers are then priced out of it, right? But at the same time, it should not be so regulated that investors are not able to put in the funds that are required to guarantee that availability. Financial inclusion. Again, another reason for the capital markets. A lot has been said about the need for funding the sector, and that is it's a very important reason. But the fact also is that having the capital market play a bigger role in this industry also gives opportunity to the average person out there to make investments, creates wealth for himself, widen the net of financial wealth distribution, if you like. And that's also one key area. And also, of course, we know that the traditional sources of funding, banks and the state treasuries, are already carrying a very crazy amount of the burden of the debts and the illiquidity in the sector already. So there's got to be a very deliberate sourcing for alternative funding, and that's where the capital market comes in also. And then, of course, the liquidity that the capital market offers. Everything that the Honorable Commissioner showed, the flow of power that the clean electricity Lagos market will have, from the fuel input end of its transmission, distribution, all the way down. At each point in that chain, there are very strict payment assurances that are required to make sure that that power continues to flow. And any break in that payment is what then begins to grow into the nearly unmanageable deficit that we now have at the national market. The liquidity of the capital markets will address this and help each of any payment obligor in that chain be able to meet its obligations and guarantee that it then gets on to the next person and ultimately down to the consumer. Short-term financing options in commercial papers will also be very helpful in getting operators meet their short-term financing needs. And of course, there is a precedent for this. We are not speaking about things that haven't been done before. There have been infrastructure bonds, there have been green bonds that have funded development of critical infrastructure, electricity, and other utilities nationally. So really, it is not entirely new. Then why the Clean Lagos electricity market? I started by saying that as far as capital market investment is required, it's all law, contracting, and of course policy, right? A key requirement in this regard is a regulator or policymakers being able to take decisions in real time that accounts for changing circumstances. So first of all, the regulations, the law, the policies have got to be very clear. In my opinion, we've already achieved that with the electricity law. We are going to see a bit more of it as the Commission begins to issue their instruments, their guidelines, and their regulations and the orders. But it's not just in the setting of those regulations. It's also in the ability to very quickly pivot where it is necessary to either deal with an unforeseen circumstance or a new opportunity that then arises. And then the fact that Lagos has actually been doing this on other industries for a really long time. In our opinion, the Lagos economy already holds very significant transaction experience. It's quite sophisticated, and it's got the regulatory and every other, the organizational structure that could help this work. The LCFE organizing this, and I was happy to hear the MD list out the products already that are going to be trading on this exchange in this market. Lagos, unquestionably, is Nigeria's economic capital. We have said potentially could be Africa's also. And why not? Why not? I mean, national economies have been reliant on purely their ability to attract and hold financial services and professional services very strongly. London is one big example in that. And then a point that I know is still a bit, I mean, there's still a bit of debate on that, but we think the data should have settled that. Grid power remains the cheapest source of power for consumers. So yes, until we've got the spread of infrastructure and maybe the economic parity that enables power to get to everybody equally and at the same time, until that happens, there could be need for some off-grid projects that the law, a big section of the law actually deals with. But ultimately, compared to self-generation, compared to some of these islanded off-grid generation, grid power remains really, in terms of costs, the cheapest. And that is one target for investment, whether it's in the upgrading of existing infrastructure or in financing new build entirely. Now, where are these opportunities in the Clean Lagos electricity market for investors? One of the very fascinating things that the electricity law has done is to break up the segments in the value chain even more than had been the case in the industry. So you've got trading and retail supply now very clearly separated as standalone parts of the value chain. And you've got a very clear provision for the separation of carriage and supply. So you find that you are not then asking investors to come and invest in a market where the scope of operations are so wide that the risks then also becomes wide. You are now able to, as an investor, target specific areas where you think makes the most sense for you. In trading, right, the managing director of LCFE had already mentioned some of the products that they will be trading. Why is power not a commodity on the exchanges? If you are a trader or intending to be a trader, a big part of what you need is liquidity and capital. In off-grid electrification, I had mentioned that the law had been very specific in making very detailed provisions for off-grid generation plants, IEDNs, independent electricity distribution networks, put in areas where that are either underserved or have other constraints. That will take some new build infrastructure, that will take some upgrade in existing infrastructure, and that will require some funding. The Honorable Commissioner had also mentioned the grid-scale renewable energy bids that are going on the gas-fired. There's new generation required in the Lagos markets. There is, and there is a very clear intent to transition to renewable over time. That is also a target for investment. And then in the retail supply segment, I had mentioned that the law had very clearly now separated carriage and supply. So if you are a wires business, then focus on the wires business, direct your funding and your operations in maintaining that equipment and that infrastructure, and let the retailer then take care of the further downstream activities of getting the power to the consumer and metering and collections. And this is where the financial wizards are going to come in. Devise products that allows parties, both the investors and customers, to make very specific choices. You have investors whose interest is not necessarily the bottom line. There are impact-driven investment where investors are looking for products in renewables or products that are going to guarantee access power access for schools, for hospitals. And they are looking for specific products targeted at those. So not necessarily investments that are going to get them the highest return, but investments that are going to make the most impact. Those products, derivatives, could be designed in the Lagos electricity market. And for consumers also, because you've now got retail broken up from carriage, and because you've now got trading, customers are able to exercise a bit more choice for their source of power. You could say that you don't want power from any fossil plants. You want only renewables. So you then trade or buy power from a trader or from a retailer who guarantees that this is the source of the power. So you've got all of those innovations that the market can set up. And that's why we think that this conversation is important. For too long, the financing of electricity in Nigeria had been a bit traditional, the banks and then the government interventions and a few DFIs getting in to take care of short-term or take care in the short-term problems that have built up over time in deficits and all. But what Lagos State is doing now is almost entirely a clean slate. So yes, there's going to be some transitional issues with legacy distribution companies and their subsidiaries. There are going to be some transitional issues and interface between the LASEC, the Lagos Electricity Commission, and the NERC. But ultimately, it is essentially Lagos wiping the slate clean and trying to avoid the pitfalls that had been constraints in the national market. And we think that this event today should bring a bit more clarity on funding for the activities that will be required to deliver a very efficient and very functional, clean Lagos electricity market. So thank you very much for listening to me, and we look forward to answering questions at the panel session. Thank you.
Please let's put our hands together for him. Please let's put our hands together for him. Thank you very, very much for that presentation on the law structures contract for the Clean Lagos electricity market and highlighting the opportunities for the capital market participation. Right now we're going into the first panel session. I look forward to this, but I'd like to also share with us what this is going to be about. Again, we are going to be having, all right, we're going to be having the session chair. So for our panel sessions, we're going to the session chair. Session chair will be brought on stage and the introductions of other panelists will be done. So please let's put our hands together as we welcome for the first panel session, the session chair, the Honorable Commissioner, Lagos State Ministry of Energy's Mineral Resources, Mr. Biodun Ogunleye. Can we put our hands together for him? Thank you.
One, two, check. Check, check. Check, 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 check.
Check.
Thank you. It's afternoon. This is supposed to be a breakfast meeting. I hope you guys are having a good meal. Okay.
Check, check.
I would rather sit.
Check.
Chibuke, I think you should come and join me and sit. You've heard Chibuke speak to us. This panel will actually be looking at drilling down into what Chibuke has delivered to us. My team will know about full disclosure. Let me say, the four of us on this panel are four great people that I know that historically over time, we have always asked ourselves, this electricity can be better. Either as social friends, as professional colleagues, or as partners on all manner of projects in the sector. So I'm delighted to be on this panel with everyone. Chibuke and Shola are partners in Oak Legas, and I know that Oak Lega has done a lot of work in this regard, and Chibuke has done a lot of things for us as Ministry of Energy on pro bono basis, and as close as our last meeting with NEC, for me, Oak Lega is my go-to partner when it comes to some of these issues, and we throw a lot of things at them, and we call them at very short notice without any long story. Now, the next person I'm calling to join us is a son and managing partner. I've gotten to know him for quite a while too, but he has not done anything for me free of charge. But he did a wonderful review of the law. So he is the right person to have on this panel, because your questions will come directly to him and he can take it up where it is. Please, can you help me put your hands together as we welcome Wolemi Eson. Wolemi Eson. San, SAN, I don't know how to address them properly. Wole, please, if I'm, please correct me with all tenderness. We need more mics here. Okay. Now, the next person And apparently the last person I'm bringing on board is another gentleman that even inside church, when we get to stand aside in church, we said to ourselves, this electricity problem. And today, we are going beyond theories and stories. We are now caught in between execution, so to say. He's not a lawyer, he's a chartered accountant, but I know he's done a lot of consulting work in this space. Both of them are not relations. They both bear the same surname, and so Olumide is the West African energy lead for Deloitte. Please help me put your hands together as Olumide join us on this panel. Okay. Now, I'm actually not the one that was supposed to be the chair of this particular panel, but the original chairman is Engineer Abimbola Odubiyi. Engineer Abimbola Odubiyi is unavoidably absent, and it was resolved that maybe I should take this role. So I'm here. Okay, gentlemen, we are going to be looking at the structures of the we're going to be looking at the law, the opportunities that's presented, and how best our market participants can make the best out of it. So, I mean, for our first shot, I don't know if we can just take a first round and say, will you award Lagos 100% for this law from an investor's point of view? Are there, I mean, if you don't blow your trumpet, nobody will know you even have one. So, can I just ask you, how do you see this compared to the other sub-national laws that you have had the opportunity of reviewing? I know you have reviewed a few of them. In terms of coverage, in terms of what we have put on the table, does this make sense? Is it more friendly and focused towards the market, both capital and money market, so that we can use this? Can we just do an opener based on that line?
Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. Honorable Commissioner, I see that you really want me to praise you. But on a more serious note, I think, that everything Lagos does, the sophistication shows, right? And I think this law is consistent with that pattern. The Lagos law is obviously a lot more sophisticated than what you see in other states. And I think it's because Lagos had a head start. Even before the other states or even the Governors Forum came together to push for the defederalization of electricity, Lagos has been at the forefront. So that really shows in the law. And because Lagos is also the nerve center of the country's commercial activities, you can see that the law ticks all the boxes, and we'll be getting into that in the course of this presentation. But in summary, what you see is that most of the things that the investors would like to see, the broad framework has been set up in that law. Of course, there's still a lot of work to be done by LASEC in terms of issuing the regulations, the standards, and the procedures. But in terms of overarching framework, I believe the law provides a solid foundation for what is going to be a game-changing market. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Honorable Commissioner. So I will just add to what he has said. I think the law is very robust, and I think he addresses most of what would have been concerns for me. what I'm looking forward to and what I asked you when I spoke with you recently is implementation, actually, because that is where the real issue is. We've seen similar robust laws in the past, at the federal level, but breaks down at the point of implementation. And I'm really looking forward to Lagos State implementing this particular one to the letter, because that is when we can achieve 4,000 megawatts. That is when we can fulfill SDG 7 by eradicating energy poverty in Lagos State. Thank you.
Well, I've spent the last 15 minutes praising the law. I'm happy to stress again. It really is, and this is not just, we're not saying it just for the sake of saying. It really is a well thought out law. My colleague here had mentioned that a lot, of course, will ride on the implementation. I've got a bit of confidence that that's going to happen, looking at the composition of the Electricity Regulatory Commission, for instance, and the persons that are sitting in there right now. And of course, the fact that in the short time since the law had been signed, some very critical milestones had already been achieved. The transfer orders from NERC, the slew of policy announcement coming from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. I was privileged to sit in the same room with the Honorable Commissioner at the first meeting with NERC ahead of the transfer orders, and I can tell you that Lagos, as far as implementation is concerned, I'm very optimistic that that's going to work well. So yes, to your question, it is, compared to others, it really is a well thought out law. And I'm also confident the implementation will follow that same trend.
Thank you all. This mic seems to be too loud. Okay, maybe we'll use this mic because I can't. Can you guys hear yourself when? Okay, please, can you take up the volume of the second mic? Thank you very much. Okay, so now, Chibuke, you've given us a robust presentation. And from that presentation, you have said to us, based on what you are saying, the law is all the provisions that's required by a potential investor to come into the market, maybe they're in place or something. But I want to challenge you. There's a difference between something being in place and the kind of confidence level you have in what is in place. You may have been trained to be a boxer, but when you get when it is time to go into the boxing ring, based on what you are saying, an investor has walked into your office today. What will you say to the person to be able to assure the person that, don't worry, drop the money you are thinking about, and let's see how the market plays out on you in the long term?
So I'll say very specifically, look at the things Lagos has done before. And I started off by saying that way ahead of the curve nationally on states or a decentralized electricity market, Lagos had been very bullish in pushing for it. I was one of those, full disclosure, I was one of those that said a Lagos market at the time, before the constitutional amendment and before the Electricity Act 2023, was going to have a very dodgy legal basis. I did argue that. But I was fascinated by how the government continued to push for it, continued to push that discourse, and here we are. The constitutional issues are resolved, the legal issues are resolved as far as state legislation and federal legislation is concerned. So to a potential investor, I'll very simply say, look at what Lagos has done before. They have been steady and assured in pushing that vision. And if that doesn't give you confidence, I will wonder what else would. Yes, of course, with every investment decision, there are a million things that could potentially go wrong. There are all sorts of variables. But the past is one thing you can always refer to. What has this state done? As far as setting a vision, pursuing it, delivering on it, I would give Lagos very high marks. And I'll say to an investor, take the state at its word, really. take the commission at their word when they start to give out their regulations and their guidelines and take that leap. And there are also sufficient protection. If anything goes wrong, that's why you have me as your lawyer. We'll make sure you are good in the end.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me go back to Wolemi. You know, there's a thin line between affordability, being able to have the product at pricing that people can pay, and also the appetite of investors to maximize what they can get from every unit that is put on the market. So my question to you will now be, how does the structure Lagos is putting in place, how does it help us to attract investment, but at the same time lower cost, so that low-income people within the confines of the city are not shortchanged?
Okay, so thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner, for that question. I think there's always going to be that tension, right, between the service providers in the sector and the consumers. And this is not just limited to this part. Anywhere in the world, once you are in a regulated space, there is the profit maximization objective of the service provider, and also there is the cost minimization objective of the end user. And that's where regulation comes in. And that's one of the reasons why electricity is a regulated activity everywhere in the world, because it's a social service. And so the state cannot just allow the service producers to just have a field day. And that's where LASEC has its work cut out for it in trying to achieve that fine balance. And we have to leverage lessons from what NEC has gone through. It's only, as they say, you know, it's a definition of something is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different outcome. We've seen previous regulators, whether federal or otherwise, tend towards one side of the spectrum, which is consumer protection, and then leaving the investor, leaving the investor in the cold. You have to find a way to stay in the middle. And there's a reason why we are where we are today. Is because of that cost reduction mentality, not fully appreciating that those in the sector, they are not charities, they are in the business to make money. Now, in the context of this tension, I think the electricity law has done a great job, because for starters, it promotes a tariff methodology. If you look at Section 104 that sets out the tariff methodology and guiding principles, it requires it to be fair, and at the same time requires it to allow the investors to recover costs and make reasonable returns, and at the same time allows the consumer allows it to be fair to the consumer. So how do you achieve this balance? There are a number of things that can be done. Of course, all these are not set out in the law, but just learning from other clients, there are things that can be done to achieve this fine balance. One is some sort of cross-subsidization, right? Because there is the ability to pay on the part of some people, and some don't necessarily have that ability to pay. So rather than government subsidizing the low-end users, that can be done by the commercial and industrial users. And you can also have a ratcheting tariff, such that there is the entry-level tariff is that you think people need for essential electricity living. That maybe the first 50 kilowatts hour per month or whatever, you set that at a very low price, right? Then once you exceed that, then you start paying a lot more. And what you get from those paying a lot more can sort of make up for the service that is being provided for those at the bottom of the pyramid. So there are different regulatory instruments and regulatory structures that the regulator can use to achieve the twin objective. And the objective is always very difficult to achieve, but it's a twin objective that must be achieved. Cost minimization and also ensuring that the investors have exciting returns. Otherwise, they won't put their money.
Thank you very much. Now, Olumide, can we look at, investors and consumers are always at loggerhead. The price is too much, the price is too low. And he has said the regulators have a job to do. I agree. But the market must be competitive. So, what will be your recommendations to Lagos as to, and you had also earlier spoken to issues around is how this law is implemented that will make a difference. So, what will be your recommendations to Lagos on what should be the strategy, the approach to go beyond customer protection? Because the temptation is to follow what the people want, make the people happy, and then suddenly the market may not have enough returns to be sustainable. What would be your recommendation as to the best practices or the best way for Lagos to enforce these robust regulatory, to progress this robust regulatory environment that is planned and ensure success in the long time?
Thank you. So let me start by saying the objectives are clear. We want everyone to have access to electricity, to power generally. If you look at the energy trilemma, we've got energy security, which is access, and then we've got affordability, and then we've got sustainability. Obviously, in this part of the world, sustainability is ranking third for us. First, we need access, and then we need it to be affordable. Now, he had mentioned earlier the need for cross-subsidization, which can be achieved, through aggregation, for example. So the suppliers get paid from a pot, whereas the consumers pay different rates into the pot. That will not only ensure that everyone, that will not only ensure that it's inclusion for everyone can have access to power, but also ensure that we keep the investors happy. The investors follow the money, okay? So if it's, I do say to people, investors follow economics, right? If it's not economic, they don't do it. And you alluded to that fact. Part of the reason why we are still on 4,000 megawatts today is because we overregulated the industry and we lean too much towards protecting the consumers. So the pricing must work for investors, otherwise they won't be able to invest in infrastructure and make decent returns. The other thing we can do is scale. Okay, if we can rapidly scale up, Lagos can even be a net exporter, right? But then scaling up means reduced unit cost of energy production or even transmission or distribution. That helps in the affordability equation for those who struggle with affordability. The third piece of this is rewarding efficiency and punishing efficiency on the part of the operators. This has worked in almost every sector. And of course, the system is designed to be transparent, so no one is being punished unnecessarily. So the rules are set by the regulators. And if you are outside of the benchmark, then there is some penalties for you. If you are within the benchmark, there is some incentives for you. That helps the operators to look for best practices, how to save costs, and yet how to serve customers better. I have to say this, it's a journey for Lagos State, right? And we're going to learn along the line. And we're not going to get there overnight. I've often said this when we talk about energy transition, which I know it's all linked to this, that it's never going to be a revolution. It's going to be an evolution. So it's the same way this journey. From energy poverty, we're not going to have a revolution into sufficiency, right? But we're going to evolve over time. We'll learn along the line. I would say to investors that look at the market, 26 million and counting, right? So the market is there. And the tariff will be cost reflective. There will still be some regulation, but if you can just look at the market and the pricing, which will be cost reflective, there is every incentive to want to invest.
Thank you very much. Now, let's round up this on 2 bullet notes, and I would appreciate if Chibuike will start this for me. Now, is there anything new that the markets can do? Is there anything new? Do we need to innovate anything? Do we need to do anything in a different way so that in terms of ensuring the capital market this time around does not suddenly become docile, inactive? We don't have as many bond stocks and all that from the electricity sector. What are the things that we need to do or we can do differently? Just thinking outside the box and also saying to ourselves, well, if I'm an investor and I'm looking at these things, I will be expecting the following risk issues to be addressed. So let me start with you, BK. If you can just take that along, then we'll take questions from the audience.
Yeah. So, one big theme that I've heard repeated a lot each time that the state officials have been discussing about this vision for the market is this least cost approach. And I think already, you ask for something new, the idea is already there. And it's interesting that we already have brought in these issues of subsidies already in the discussion. Rather than saying something new you must do, I'll answer in the negative. Something new you must not do. And because this is a clean slate, I think it is very important with this market that the temptation to intervene as a state be managed very well. When it comes to issues like that, on a principle basis, I'm on the school of thought that believes that the market self-corrects. And it might sound a bit wishful to some persons. I've heard others argue otherwise and make the case that human behavior is not always rational and is not always predictable, and so you cannot trust that people are going to make the right choices, therefore intervene. But I'm firmly of the view that ultimately, with the right rules in place and with the right regulations in place, markets usually will self-correct. So what I'll say, as far as something new, it is what you must not do. And that is the temptation to intervene in whatever form. Subsidies, rather than subsidize consumption, why not subsidize production? Which ultimately then impacts prices, and you achieve the same thing. Rather than set prices based on political cycles or some other events. Play the long game. Allow things to adjust. It is a new market. There are going to be some glitches. There are going to be a few unforeseen circumstances. But it's long term we are talking about here, medium to long term. It will self-correct. So my answer to that will be in the negative, to resist the temptation for excessive state intervention. And Lagos demographics already is good for this market with the population density and the concentration of businesses and financial and other professional services in Lagos. I'm a bit more optimistic that you've got the basics for a market that will work.
All right, so let me just say this. The market is not deep enough, all right? So we need to encourage the market to invest more. I was at African Energy Week not too long ago, and I was discussing with some of my colleagues in Cape Town, and they said to me, you know, if we needed to spend $10 billion on a new power plant, it will all be raised here in South Africa. We don't need any foreign bank to finance it, and it will all be done in rands. What I'm trying to say is our market is not deep enough. We need to work in collaboration with the capital market. Education is very key for them to even understand how this sector works. A lot of people don't have an idea, other than put on the fan in their homes or switch on the light. They don't understand how the sector works. So there's a little bit of education that still needs to be done so that people understand how the value chain works. The market needs to be creative. There are so many ways you can share risk. You have, risk sharing facilities that can be raised in unconventional ways. I know many people know about green bonds, but there's so much more that can come out of the capital market and not the conventional equities. But it will only come when there is that collaboration between the government side and also the capital market operators, educating them on, what exactly this translates to for everyone. The market is so shallow that if there is a major need for fund in this country, if two states are going to the market at the same time, it cannot happen. It's similar to our banking sector, where two deals cannot happen at the same time because all of them have syndicated just for one. So the market needs to be encouraged to be creative actually in the instruments, particularly the debt instruments that comes to market. So I think that we can do differently to promote this whole idea of power for all by Lagos State.
You know what I would like you to do differently? Just follow your law.
Follow the law.
Follow your law. Because that is one thing. If you do that, it will be a new thing. Because that's one thing we don't do well in this country. We don't follow what the law says. The legal framework, for the most part, is never usually the problem. There is almost nothing under the sun. 8 out of 10 times, there's a law for it in Nigeria. But we just don't follow the law. And in terms of investors, I don't think we need to come up with anything sophisticated or esoteric. Nigerian entrepreneurs, Nigerian investors, they are very savvy. You don't need to come up with any sophisticated instrument. If the business is making money, they will see it. And if it's not making money, if you can dress it in derivatives, contract for differences, they won't touch it. At the very basic level, once the tariff is right, the market is properly regulated, investors, they chase money the way sharks follow blood. Once there is a liquid system, once there are good returns, you don't need anything sophisticated. They will come for you.
Thank you very much. Can we be allowed to just take 2 questions from the floor? 2 questions or contribution? None. Oh. Do we have a roving mic for him? Okay. Is your hand up too? No, just his hand. Okay. Okay, can you come and take my mic, please? We don't have time. Go ahead, come and take mine. Go, come. It's taking long. Let's just get going.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. My name is Usifo Ogbebo. I work for Zenith Bank PLC. First of all, I'd like to commend the CLEM initiative. I think it's very forward-looking and it's very strategic. The mere fact that the first word in the acronym is clean triggers quite a lot of interest. So my question is, what's the plan to access the global carbon credit market? Are you looking at participating in certain carbon registries or sequestration programs globally? Ability to access those credits will trigger quite a lot of interest with investors and of course provide that level of additional benefits that will come from investing in the business. Thank you.
Is there a second hand? Okay. Thank you very much. I'm trying not to let too many things out of the bag today, because if I let too many things out of the bag, you may not be looking for us again. But be assured of the following. Number one, the Lagos electricity market is targeting to ensure that 30% of our inputs come from renewable resources. So that qualifies us for all the clean mechanism infrastructure that is available globally. The second thing that you expect from us, and in the next few days, will involve announcements as to where and what protocols and agreements and registry that we have been part of or we are going to be part of. And then you are going to see in that, part of the foundation we are laying for that is the fact that we have launched a clean, what's the name of that? Our first bid again. Grid connected renewables. Our target is to try everything possible to have like 1 gig connected to our grid within the first 3 years. So for us to be fully funded, we are looking not just at the Nigerian capital market, but at all the windows available globally. But we are being extremely careful so that people don't just go and start making money on top of our head without getting the job done. So I want to make sure that the regulator starts, people are properly registered, they are properly onboarded, and then we are able to ensure that the transactions too, we have done groundbreaking, those facilities are coming up, so we don't make a mistake of people just trading on us. And then at the end of the day, the improvements and the projects that we desire to be the ultimate beneficiary of those funding mechanisms they will have been bastardized if we allow it. So carefully, step by step, we will get there, and you will see our announcement very soon. We have an event that is coming up. The last day is what we call a market day. On that market day, there will be a couple of announcements. And what you are talking about is one of them. And we are going to be extremely cautious and careful so we don't lose the brand that we're trying to bring on board. Thank you very much. I think we've done a good job. Is there a provision for pictures? Yes.
Hello. All right, thank you very much. Please, we would like the panelists to stay up for pictures, and would like to invite the MD, CEO, and also the chairman. Yes, the chairman of LCFE, Chief Onyenwechukwu P. Ezeago, and also the managing director, Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange, Mr. Akeredolu Ali, as they will come up to join the panelists to have these pictures. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We really appreciate that time. Like I said, everything that is being shared today is expository. And as you are opening, as the windows of opportunities are being opened concerning the Lagos electricity market in particular, I want to believe that every one of us here will be taking note and exploiting it as much as we can. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for them. Let's put our hands together for them. And so quickly, in 7 minutes, we'll be taking 2 goodwill messages. We have 7 minutes to take 2 goodwill messages. And right after that, we're going to be taking a presentation for 10 to 15 minutes. So the goodwill messages will be brought to us right now. The first by the Director General of PENCOM, the Director General PENCOM, Miss Omolola Oloworaron, Miss Omolola Oloworaron, who is represented here today by the head of Southwest Zonal Office of PENCOM, Mr. Shola Adesheun. Please, let's put our hands together for him. Let's put our hands together for him. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I've been told by the MC that I have little time, so I'll just skip, permit me to skip the protocol and let me adhere to the already established one. So my name is Makin Shola Adesheun, and I'm representing the Director General of the National Pension Commission in the person of Ms. Omolola Oloworaron. She has asked me to just give a goodwill message at this gathering. So I'll just go quickly into it. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme of today's breakfast meeting, building a competitive electricity marketplace, strategies to attract investments and boost confidence in the Lagos electricity market using the capital market, is not only timely but strategic. The development of a robust electricity market is fundamental to our nation's economic growth and industrialization. As the regulator of the pension industry, PENCOM recognizes the vital role that institutional investors, including pension fund administrators, play in providing long-term capital for infrastructure development, including the power sector. The Commission's dedication to supporting the pension industry's role in providing long-term capital for infrastructure development is exemplified in 2023 by its approval of the request for a no objection regarding the inclusion of the Lagos State Government's 20 billion naira infrastructure Sukuk Series 2 bond under the 1 trillion naira debt and hybrid instruments DAI program as permissible investments within the pension industry. We commend the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange as well as the Lagos State Government for establishing this platform, which enables stakeholders to explore innovative methods of financing and developing our electricity market through capital market instruments. This initiative aligns with our goal of ensuring that pension funds significantly contribute to Nigeria's economic development while safeguarding pension assets. In conclusion, The National Pension Commission remains dedicated to collaborating with market operators and other stakeholders in developing suitable frameworks that will enable pension fund investments in viable infrastructure projects, including the power sector, through secure and well-structured financial instruments. I wish you all a fruitful deliberations, which we've already started, and then I thank you for your attention. Omolola Oloraron, DG, National Pension Commission.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please let's put our hands together for him. I mean, he has really been helpful with his delivery of yet another wonderful goodwill message. We take another goodwill message, this time from the Group DMD of UBA PLC, Mr. Muyiwa Akinyemi, who is represented here today by Dr. Gbadebo Aderile. Let's put our hands together for him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Muyiwa Akinyemi is unable to be here, and I'm MD Investment Banking at the United Capital PLC. He had said this is more a capital market related conference, and it would be good for me to take this goodwill. So I'll just jump straight, and I'll rely on existing protocols. And it's a great pleasure that I stand before you as we engage in the fundamental discussions on the opportunities for capital market participation in the Lagos electricity market. Lagos, as the commercial capital and economic hub of Nigeria, stands at the forefront of the nation's energy transition and thrives on innovation, commerce, and the relentless entrepreneurial spirit of its people. However, for a modern economy to reach its full potential, stable and efficient electricity supply is key. The electricity market in Lagos has long been plagued with challenges that have hindered growth, investments, and confidence in the time past. With estimated 1,000 to 1,200 megawatts of electricity received from the national grid as of 2024, subject to some fluctuations and grid stability, it's evident that the supply remains substantially below demand, estimated at about 10,000 megawatts, and this indicates considerable shortfall. To address this considerable gap, the Lagos State Electricity Law was signed in by His Excellency Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu on 3rd December 2024, and I think a lot has been said about this. I'll just jump quickly to say the integrated electricity policy and the strategic implementation plan established under this law guides the development and structure of the Lagos electricity market, ensuring the delivery of reliable, affordable, and sustainable electricity to consumers in the state. We believe it will boost investor confidence by promoting market competition, public-private partnerships, off-grid solutions, and energy-efficient measures to bridge this gap in the state. This Lagos State Electricity Law, in our view, is a call to arms for the state to join hands with investors and financiers to bridge the energy gap by displacing over 13 million generators with cleaner and more efficient and cost-effective energy solutions such as captive and embedded power, mini-grids, commercial industrial solar systems, and attendant value chain enhancements such as gas-to-power solutions. The capital market remains a vital tool in unlocking the much-needed financing in the power sector, leveraging sustainable financing via green bonds, infrastructure debt funds, PPPs, public-private partnerships, impact investing, and even conventional capital raising solutions, essentially to unlock funding from the capital market and provide long-term stable investment opportunities that align with the global trends in green energy and infrastructure development. United Capital PLC and indeed our big sister United Bank for Africa are major players in the market, and we are uniquely positioned to provide unparalleled execution support to drive the objectives of the state with the capital markets as a familiar terrain for key stakeholders in the state. Over the years, indeed, United Capital and UBA have supported power-related transactions. Very quickly, I'll just run through a few ones. Ibom Power in 2013, North-South Power, 2 capital raises, bonds that were raised, and we led on the last green bond in 2019. Transcorp Power acquisition of Ughelli Power and AFAM, and the Transcorp acquisition of AFAM PLC and AFAM 3 Fast Power. Geo Utility, 13 billion Series 1 bond in 2019. We're lead issuing house on that. Geregu Power also had a first bond by, a big genco. Then we raised 40 billion from the market. Then was also very, it was also a very major one. This was just in 2022. And Accela also raised financing from the capital markets, then very traditional bond as well. Last year as well, we listed by introduction Transcorp Power PLC on the Nigerian exchange, valued at 1.8 trillion naira then. That value has grown since then. And also, on a smaller scale, our infrastructure fund has also financed Ekiti IPP as part of the financiers as well. Currently as well, we're supporting, we're financial advisors on a 255 megawatt gas-fired power plant in Senegal. UBA on its own has also done a lot of financing. A few of them include the First Independent Power Limited. First Independent Power Limited was part of that financing. KEPCO KERL, that was the Sahara transaction. That was also for Egbin, acquisition of Egbin then. UBA was part of that. And the new electricity distribution company, UBA was also part of that as that's syndicated first. Those are just a few transactions from the banking side. I think the evidence here is to show that a lot of transactions have been done in the market to just showcase some of the ones we as United Capital have been involved in. We believe as we embark on this transformative journey to achieving a cleaner and more sustainable electricity market, the role of the private sector investment becomes even clearer and more crucial. The path to greener Lagos is not just a vision, it's an opportunity waiting to be unlocked. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to esteemed panelists here, distinguished guests, honored attendees. Your contributions and commitments to improving the power sector in Lagos are invaluable. We'd also like to wish the Lagos electricity market continued growth and progress. We're excited at the prospects of the Lagos electricity markets and are committed to partnering with the LCFE and the Lagos Electricity Regulatory Commission to achieve its strategic goals. Thank you very much, and I wish us all a very productive session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The goodwill is well received. Even as we proceed at this point, we are going to be receiving a presentation which is on how the structure of the CLEM addresses investment risk. How the structure of the CLEM addresses investment risk. To make this presentation, and I'll be introducing two items together, again with the consciousness of the time that we have lost and the little that we have left. To make this, all right, I'm correct, okay. Now, to make this presentation would be a market operator for CLEM, Barrister Mrs. Bumi Benson. Barrister Mrs. Bumi Benson. And of course, right after that, we're going to be having the second panel session, which will be chaired by Mr. Oluwafemi Omisonjo. But for now, we take the presentation on how the structure of CLEM addresses investment risk.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I abide by all existing protocol. I'll be talking to you today about how the structure of the Clean Lagos electricity market addresses investment risks. So already today, there have been a number of presentations. We've already heard about some of the structures that have been put in place. But what I would like to start with is to say to us all clearly that investors already know how to follow the money. Investors already can tell, they can read the room, they already can judge whether your market is good enough for them to invest in or whether to just run. So what I'm going to be sharing with us here today, please let's go to the next slide. Yes, what I'm going to be sharing with us here today, I'm going to be giving us a picture of what the structure of this Lagos electricity market looks like. And we're going to look at the various elements of that market that we've put together, that we've put in place. And it's going to also, in the course of this presentation, it will become clearer and clearer how investment risks have been addressed by this current structure. So in this diagram, we can see all of the various institutions that the Lagos electricity law has created in an attempt to make sure that the market is properly regulated, because one of the primary things that gives security to investors is the availability and presence of robust regulatory infrastructure. So at the head of that structure, we have the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, followed closely by the regulator, Lagos State Electricity Regulatory Commission, and closely followed by the Lagos Independent System Operator. In the next few slides, we're going to be talking about some of the functions of these regulatory bodies. I've been told I have limited time, like half of the time I was given originally, so I will try to speed through, but please just follow me. We also have, please go back, thank you. We also have the Power Enforcement Unit. At the bottom of the circles, we have some of the elements that are going to ensure that some of the risks for investors are taken away and, eliminated, or at least reduced as much as possible. Efficient and effective electricity market, reliable and stable electric grid, integrated system resource planning, robust market design and monitoring, competitive procurement process. Now, once the grid can be stable and reliable, you and I agree that there will be a lot of instability will be taken away from the market, and it will also help towards giving investors confidence. All of these elements are going to be discussed in the following slides. At the very bottom of this diagram, we have some of the regulations, some of the legal and regulatory framework that the state has put in place to make sure that this market is properly regulated. There is the Lagos State Electricity Law 2024. There is the Lagos State Integrated Electricity Policy. That policy provides the groundwork, the general framework within which all of these institutions that we've mentioned are expected to perform, and that policy is very investor-friendly. We have the Integrated Resource Plan, which is still being worked on, and the Strategic Implementation Plan. The Integrated Resource Plan has the duty of making sure that the resources available in the market are planned ahead of time, and this will help to eliminate imbalance in the market. Next slide, please. Now, I know that for investors, the money is very important. So what this diagram tries to do is to help us see the money flow and just follow the money. So we can see the red arrows show the energy flow. The green ones show how the money travels. The very important thing to note with this Clean Lagos electricity market is that we are going to be monitoring closely payments. There is going to be a central collection account that would help the market operator and the system operator to ensure that value is collected for service rendered and that money gets paid at the right time to service providers in the market. The next slide, please. I'm going to just skip through all of this very soon. The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources is the entity at the head of the table, the entity through which the Lagos State government formulates and implements its strategies for risk reduction in the claim and proper development of the market. The ministry has oversight. Please, let's skip to the next slide. Now, we have the Lagos State Electricity Regulatory Commission, which is the main regulatory, but the primary regulator for the Clean Lagos electricity market. It's designed to be an autonomous and credible body, which I'm sure it will be. Its primary objective shall be to regulate an electricity market that is physically safe, technically secure, commercially sensible, and economically efficient at a reasonable cost for electricity consumers in the state. So we do not use these words lightly at all. This is indeed the goal for the Clean Lagos electricity market. It's going to be safe, it's going to be commercially viable, it's going to be affordable. The next slide, please. Now, we have also the Lagos Independent System Operator, which is going to be set up very soon. We have about 18 months from the establishment of the law within which to set up the Lagos ISO. Work is already ongoing to make sure that this Lagos ISO is set up within the shortest time possible. The primary objective of the Lagos ISO shall be to ensure and maintain the integrity of the state grid to be controlled by the Lagos ISO for the delivery of electricity to consumers. The Lagos ISO will be licensed by the Lagos State Electricity Regulatory Commission. The ISO will undertake the following functions, amongst others, to ensure and maintain reliability of supply in the clean Lagos electricity market. The next slide, please. So these are some of the functions that the Lagos ISO will be performing. Scheduling of generation and transmission, including dispatch and outage coordination, administration of the wholesale electricity market in the state, real-time operational support for monitoring conditions of the state's grid. Please, let's move to the next slide. Now we have the Lagos State Electrification Agency, which is currently existing as the Lagos State Electricity Board. The agency now is going to have these functions: managing and controlling electricity installations, constructing and maintaining public lights and power points, building and operating electricity infrastructure, entering contracts for electricity projects, installing electricity lines and making repairs, promoting environmentally friendly electricity solutions, building capacity for off-grid electricity solutions. So these are some of the functions of the Electrification Agency. The next slide, please. There is also going to be a power enforcement unit. We've talked about how it's important that service providers get paid in this market for the services that they render, for the products that they provide. The Power Enforcement Unit is an innovation that is going to, educate the public on the importance and the consequences of electricity theft. The Enforcement Unit is going to, prosecute electricity-related offenses in conjunction with the judicial system, of course. It's going to collaborate with stakeholders to prevent electricity theft and damage. It's going to manage a whistleblower scheme. All of these feed into that goal that we have to make sure that money is not lost within the system and that we can remit as and when due to providers. The next slide, please. So, already it's been said here today, there is a market in Lagos, a huge market. And this table just shows a comparison between the Lagos electricity market and some other markets around Africa. Please, let's move to the next slide. So I'm going to be talking now about the features of the Clean Lagos electricity market. So, because we're supposed to speak to how those features of the market, how they help to address investment risks. So first of all, we'll be talking about the fact that we are focused on building a reliable grid. It will be the job of the Lagos ISO to ensure the adequacy, reliability, and stability of the Lagos electricity network system. A robust grid infrastructure. So the LISO will ensure continuous investment, rehabilitation, upgrade, and expansion in the Lagos electricity network system to constantly guarantee the reliability and security of supply. Next is adequate reserve margins. We cannot underestimate the importance of having reserve margins. There will be sufficient reserve capacity to meet demand even during peak periods or when unplanned outages occur. This will be managed through capacity markets and ancillary service markets. Another feature of this market is the advanced metering infrastructure. Once the metering issues that exist now are taken care of, a lot of things will necessarily fall into place. The deployment of smart meters and other advanced metering technologies will help to eliminate losses to enable near real-time pricing. So there are plans ongoing to make sure that automated meters are put in place at all the various points to make sure that we can monitor what is happening. We can monitor supply, we can monitor usage on a going basis without necessarily having to wait until people get physically to locations. Another feature of this market is the competitive market structure. The ISO will ensure competition among suppliers in all markets. Competition, of course, will help drive efficiency, lower prices, and improve service quality. Policy and regulatory oversight is an important feature of our market. The Ministry of Energy and LASEC will oversee the LISO to ensure that it complies with policy directives and regulatory framework. Transparent pricing. Prices within the market will be transparent and published on a daily basis as opposed to the current monthly arrangement. Transparency in pricing mechanisms helps participants to make informed investment and consumption decisions. Another feature of this market is that settlement will happen daily to ensure that positions are cleared on a daily basis as opposed to the current monthly settlement. The next slide, please. Now, how does the structure of our market address investment risks? This is still giving you, please go to slide 13. Yes, thank you. Now, this is the main question that this presentation seeks to answer. So, one of the ways that the structure of this market addresses investment risks is by making sure that there is regulatory stability and predictability. This is one of the very important hallmarks that engenders investor confidence. Consistent and transparent regulations by LASEC will help to stabilize the claim and make it predictable, which is crucial for long-term investments in power infrastructure. Investors, of course, need the assurance that regulations and laws will not change arbitrarily, and I believe that Lagos State is prepared to make sure that our laws in Lagos State, the regulations, are not changed arbitrarily without stakeholder engagement where it becomes necessary for any such change. Clear market signals. Efficient price signals in the markets will ensure that prices reflect supply and demand dynamics accurately. So for there to be clear market signals, we intend to automate a lot of processes. Clear market signals, of course, helps investors to make informed decisions about where and when to invest by highlighting potential returns based on actual market needs. We are moving towards a market that is transparent as opposed to the current situation where a lot of things are opaque. There are no clear market signals per se. There's a lot of guesswork. So this is one of the things that would help to address investment risk. We are looking at models in Nigeria in some industries like the stock exchange that already have this kind of transparency in place. Today in the stock market, you can easily open any investment portal and you can see what the market is saying, and you can invest accordingly. That can help you to make the right judgment. Risk sharing mechanisms. Contracts such as power purchase agreements between generators Contracts such as power purchase agreements between generators and purchasers will fix prices for electricity over a long period, reducing the price risk for producers and making it easier to secure financing for new projects. The next slide, please. Distinct market products. At least 3 market products, capacity, energy, and ancillary services will be operated on a competitive basis to ensure that generators are properly compensated while they contribute to the network, adequacy, reliability, and sustainability. Another way that the structure of the claim addresses investment risk is through making provisions for capacity payments. Capacity mechanisms that provide payments for GenCo's availability. This can help to ensure that there is enough generation capacity to meet peak demands, providing a stable revenue stream for generators and reducing the risk of underinvestment. A very important innovation that this market will be putting in place. Hedging and financial instruments. A lot has been said about that today. Markets that support derivatives, futures, and other financial instruments allow participants to hedge against price fluctuations, interest rates, and fuel costs, thus managing financial exposure and reducing risk. We are looking forward to collaborating with exchanges like the LCFE, amongst others, to drive this market. Effective tariff methodology. It's one of the cardinal points of the Lagos State Integrated Electricity Policy that the LASEC shall implement an effective tariff methodology that ensures that activities in the market are bankable. So one of the main ways that we are addressing investment risk is by ensuring that the tariff methodology and design is cost reflective so that investors can make bank. The next slide, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think you should wait. But you can just have your seat instead, rather than we keeping you standing. Please, let's put our hands together for her. Thank you very much. I must also acknowledge your effort at compressing and collapsing to help us manage the time. Thank you. And right now we are going to go into the next panel session, and I'll be inviting the session chair, who is Mr. Oluwafemi Omisonjo. And as I'm doing that, in order to also help us manage the little time we have left, I'll also, of course, we have Barrister Mrs. Bumi Benson, Market Operator Clem, who is already seated here. They will be joined by Dr. Fuad Anima Shaun. Then we'll have the CEO of LASEC, and we're going to have joining them the infrastructure consultant of LCFE, Engineer Bayo Aderolu. So maybe it will be better to occupy those seats over there, even as I will be handing over the microphone to Mr. Oluwafemi Omisonjo, the session chair.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I stand on all existing protocols, and I want to say you are welcome to this section. Just as the moderators has introduced our panelists, I will just continue from that. And I want to say that I'm really happy, I'm glad to be part of this session, trying to see how we can drive a viable and a sustainable Lagos electricity market. So let me just jump right into it, and I will take my first question. We go to Dr. Fuad Anima Shaun, who is the CEO of the Regulatory Commission. And to be very frank, the question that I want to ask as an investor is, do you think this electricity market can survive without government intervention?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The first question you have asked, I have to say, if I don't think so, I don't think I'll be up here. We strongly believe that this market will eventually evolve into that. I say this because of the structures that have been presented by the commissioner today. If you want electricity to work based on the population that you have to find a way where the population are able to pay for this power. With the theme of this conference, the most important part of this is you need investors. We have tried the same thing for years as regards government investment in this, and the government has so many other parts of the economy to deal with. It cannot focus on only one aspect, and so we have tried so many avenues, and that is one of the reasons that led the government into the Electricity Act of 2003, and we'll see what Lagos State has done in the electricity law of 2024. It would be very, very important to note that even for the investor wants to understand what exactly are the things you want to put in place to give him that guarantee. We're talking about customer data, for example. This market is not going to work if we do not actually have data on the customers that we have. And I mean, customer enumeration is very crucial to this. If you want somebody to invest in a particular area, he has to know the amount of people he wants to serve. If you want a generation company to build a power plant or embedded or distributed energy, you need to know the amount of people you need to deliver power to. Because this is the electricity business, it involves a lot of metering, transformers, wires. If you look at the generation side, take for example your generator. The generator you have in your house, if you overload it, you know what happens to your infrastructure, you know what happens to your generator. It starts to fluctuate and eventually goes off. Why does this happen? This happens because you are actually overloading the generator, or maybe there's a fault. And that's the same way it will appear in the market itself. If the generation company and the grid cannot withstand the amount of people taking power off it, you are bound to have a system crash. So your customer enumeration, you need to meter customers appropriately, because whoever is generating the electricity wants to be sure that your ATC and C, that is your aggregate technical and commercial losses, are actually very, very reduced, meaning that I'm not losing at the end of the value chain, which is the distribution end. So you have to make sure that is in place. You also have to obviously do, like I've said, you have to invest in the infrastructure that brings the power, whether you're bringing it from the grid or whether you're doing distributed energy or whether you're doing renewable energy. You have to invest in the wires that get into the customers. So a lot of infrastructure investments to come in this. Now, with all this in place, the government can only push and create a market where all those mechanisms will be provided. It cannot continue to do that. Even when you look at tariffs, you have to create cost-reflective tariffs. Cost-reflective tariffs in the context of Nigeria and Lagos, one of the key problems that you have is the issue for the customer is not just about paying only. There are macroeconomic issues. We have other issues that come into this. But on the electricity side, you will need to understand the amount of people that are going to be able to pay for this. And if you are going to provide any kind of subsidy, because it's a distortion, it has to be targeted. You have to understand who it's actually going to, and it's going to be within a particular period. So do I believe that we can do this without government? Yes. But it will take a lot of government investment initially and support from different kinds of financial mechanisms to make this work.
Thank you very much. I would like to go to Engineer Bayo. As an investor, do you think this market can survive without the government? You are coming from the outside. We are looking at a system where I want to put my money, and for a third world country like Nigeria, guarantees are what drive a lot of businesses. When a foreign capital wants to bring his money, it needs a guarantee to be sure that it will be able to recoup his capital. So in the case of Lagos electricity market, without providing government guarantee, do you think this market can survive?
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols. I am very sure, not just think, that with minimal or no government intervention and support, this market can last and survive. Now, why do I have this optimistic view? It's based on the fact that when I was looking at the structure of this claim, one of the things I was mindful of is that anytime I see that you devolve anything from the federal level to the state level, I'm always mindful to look at what are the pitfalls that you have at the federal level, and how have they managed within the state level to address those pitfalls and say that they don't enter the same trap that had been occurring at the national level. Now, one of the things I like about this claim is this issue of independent system operator that has been well structured and put in place, because that's one thing that has led to some of the problems we have at the national level. At the national level, the TCN, until recently, had the license to carry out transmission and system operation duties. But I found out that TCN was more about carrying out transmission, battling grid collapses and all. So the issue of system operator was not what they really were too up against. So Lagos State claim has actually tried to put that in place by structuring an independent system operator rule and actually going ahead to define it and put specific rules and obligations under that ISO. I believe that if that ISO is allowed to work, a lot of pitfalls that you see at the national level that makes government intervene will be removed from this subnational level. That is one. Number two, again, the issue of, this is where this one comes in. Lagos has a long transactional history. Solid has transactional history, and I believe that Solid has that capacity to activate the markets. So drawing on their history from the past and what they've done in the past, I believe that all they need to do is just keep being Lagos, keep better at being Lagos, and this system can work.
Okay, thank you very much. So my question is to Mrs. Bumi. Now, you talked about, in your presentation, you talked about risk sharing through long-term contracts. And so my question is, you know, we in the past 2 years, our macroeconomic environment has been a little bit unstable. We've seen dollar go from about 400 to about 1.7 and 1.6. And you talked about the fact that we can use financial engine and financial instruments to be able to see how we can share this risk. How do you think that will really work, considering the kind of system that we have in Nigeria and considering the fact that we have the earning power of a lot of people has been eroded through inflation, and you know the impact of foreign exchange, the impact it has, especially on tariffs and every other thing. How do we work? How do we use this financial instrument to be able to drive this market?
Thank you. So one of the issues that you've raised is the current macroeconomic situation in Nigeria, fluctuating exchange rates, a lot of uncertainties. And, you know, that is one of the crucial issues that tools like derivatives, futures, hedge funds are created to tackle. So I want to believe that if participants in this market have, you know, signed power purchase agreements for the long term, and, you know, if people have taken advantage of any of these tools like futures, you know, it would help to minimize their risk. And if for any reason contract terms that have been signed, the terms of those contracts, you know, if the parties then see that because of extreme situations, extreme fluctuations in the macroeconomic environment, they are unable to meet up, there are force majeure clauses. Parties can come back to the table and renegotiate. But on the whole, there are tools that can help parties to, you know, hedge against these kinds of unforeseeable economic risks. Thank you.
So, just the last question I will ask Dr. Fuad. So, as a regulator in the market, when do you think the markets can go so long for that you feel that it is important for a regulator to step in and be able to bring about distortions in the market?
Could you take that question?
Okay, so just as you have said, you said this market will be allowed to be a competitive market. Yes. Entrance and entry, exit is by market forces. Yes. But we know most times that there are situations where the regulator had to step in to be able to bring back a lot of things. So in the case of Lagos market, where do you think you can see yourself trying to weak the beat stick?
Definitely with a lot of enforcement areas. So we are obviously looking at things like market power. So you have to be careful the kind of capacity at some point that you allow one generator to bring it to the market. If you allow one generation company to dominate the market, it will control prices. We have to definitely monitor that. while monitoring prices, we have to also look at your source of fuel or your source. We're looking at what type of technology you're using. We will deep dive into what makes up your tariff. Because if you come with a particular price to us, we expect that we will evaluate your prices, we will evaluate the source of the technology, the type of technology you're using, which leads us to your fuel. We will also check response times in the market. For example, already you have situations where transformers have issues and the DISCO waits a lot of time. Cases where they will take your transformer and go away and we don't know when exactly they'll return it. We want to create local level administrators in such a way that there will be people who will monitor whatever happens within that community. There will be people that will be selected within the community itself. We would engage with them regularly. They will give us feedback as to supply within that area. If there are damages to the wires, there are things like, we're going to introduce things like vegetation management. We're talking about situations where people are suffering because the trees in their areas have grown into the infrastructure. It's causing major damages to it. We will recommend that there are people who will go and manage such issues. We will look at metering. Metering is a major problem because a lot of meters that you have in place, they either have issues or the tariff on the meter itself is not reading well. A lot of calibration will be done. We expect that customer wait times, we want to try and reduce customer wait times, especially when it comes to metering. Your supply is a particular issue. If there is supply issues in your area, we need to understand where exactly that supply problem is. The most important thing here is to address customer issues as quickly as possible. If you have to put in mechanisms in place that go all the way down to the supply end, to where the customers are. And in order to do that, apart from having a system operator who monitors what goes on the system, you also have to make sure you, like I said, introduce people within the area who will get access to a kind of complaint line or a kind of the kind of infrastructure, IT infrastructure that will be in place, that if you log in complaints, we will be able to deal with them as quickly as possible, and we will take it up with the DISCOs. Now, if the DISCOs or the subcos, as the regulation says, if they don't take immediate response within the time frame period, they will be penalized for this. And there are times that some of these penalties would actually translate to maybe credit back to the customer for such issues. Those are the kind of things that we're looking at, and we're hoping that at the end of the day, the market will be driven by customers' satisfaction.
Thank you very much. Okay, sorry, engineer, let me just ask you this. As an investor, do you think the integrated resource plan that are currently designed by the Lagos State for the markets, which the regulator will manage before the ISO is formed, do you think it has the opportunity to competitively procure enough power to satisfy Lagos needs?
Well, I think that generally from what I see, Lagos already has a very good governance system structure in place for this to drive this. Now, and already is, aside that, Lagos State has a functional procurement management system that's already been in place with the state secretary system and all. So like I said, Lagos is going into what it is over time being prepared for, because the support structure, the primary structures have been there. So more or less what they are building, even within this structure, is just a secondary structure to support what has been the primary procurement structure that has been in place already. So Lagos has that. I believe that they can put that in place already, because the governance structure is already very, very key, and which I think they've gotten right with the claim that they have in place. So as they drive the system along, of course, like I said, they are creating secondary structures now. So they have the primary systems, the structures around that the secondary structure they are trying to drive would ride on. So they can do that, I believe so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do you have any, as a market operator, we know you care more about the money. So where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself trying to behave like an embed that is always chasing everybody every day, or you want investors to be sure that you wake up every day, you get your credit alert, your alert, and every other thing is put in place.
Thank you. So, of course, the right option is clear. I'm not, the purpose, the goal is to do better in this market. And so, what we are out to achieve, in the market operations department, what we are out to achieve is to make sure that settlement happens on a daily basis. Participants can get paid for what they provide to the market on a daily basis without delay. And we're also going to be big on transparency and automation of the entire process. 100% metering, automation, daily settlement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether there are questions from the audience, but I think at this point, we would like to bring this section to a close as mandated by the moderator. Please, any other questions? I don't know. Moderator, are we allowed to take questions from the audience? Do you have any questions from the audience? Okay. Okay, it seems there's no question from me. Thank you very much. Really thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Doctor, engineer, and barrister, thank you very much.
No, you are not free to go yet. You need to have a picture. Please, I would like the MD and also the chairman to please join the panelists as they would have a picture. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, let's put our hands together for them. We are now going to do something that is also important to the purpose of today's gathering, and that is we will be moving straight into the third panel session, but it will be preceded by a very, very quick fire presentation. It will be preceded by a quick fire presentation, and that will be on the LCFE as a platform for trading and mobilizing capital in the Clean Lagos electricity market, the deal room. And the presentation will be done by the Managing Director and CEO, LCFE, Mr. Akinshola Akeredolu Ale, who is already on stage and is also absolutely conscious of the time that we do not have anymore. And right after that, I will cede my duty to him, as he will, at the end of his presentation, bring up the session chair for the next panel session, and who is the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Mr. Abayomi Oluyomi. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for the MD CEO, LCFE, Mr. Akinshola Akeredolu Ale.
Thank you very much. I'll bring him up. Thank you very much. We had been advised that today is going to be a Friday, and on Fridays, most of the time, some of our colleagues will want to go to the mosque, and we tried putting that into consideration. So what I'm going to do, I know they've gone to the mosque, is quickly run through my presentation. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but the key issues there I will discuss straight. And the objective of my presentation is just to look at how the capital market can unlock electricity potentials. And we're going to look at key areas of raising funds for energy infrastructure, the roles of specialist products, building transparent electricity trading ecosystem, global content, and at the end of the day, we'll just show you the boss of LCFE that we have created for electricity. I'm very happy that there's someone here that is going to be playing a key role in the electricity ecosystem. That is the credit guarantee part of it. And when it comes to credit guarantee, infra credits, and how to support the ecosystem. The previous chairman asked a question that can the ecosystem survive without government? And we know that a better part of all the issues have to do with government guarantees. I can't see my presentation coming up. Okay. So I'll go straight to the next slide, the regulatory bottlenecks and the issues that we need to address quickly in the Lagos energy space. One of them is the regulatory bottlenecks. But after the presentations today from the various agencies, I've realized that a lot of issues that have to do with regulatory bottlenecks have been taken care of. The regulatory framework also has been able to take care of the limited authority for there to be a smooth process for whatever we want to do in the electricity space there. But we still have a very severe supply to demand gap space, which is what will be addressed by this law. And as we go, when there's funding, that gap will be reduced very much. And on the issue of dependence on generators, the deputy governor mentioned this extensively, that people put 20 kVA generators, etc., in their houses, and we discovered that the efficiency is not there, and those assets are not fully utilized. But when we have a uniform position, it will become better. Then, of course, the issue of peak demand on supply for electricity. Now, for Lagos State, next slide, please. Energy and electricity law. One of the major things that seeks to address there is the investment and infrastructure deficit. There's been a lot of investment in the power space from a federal level, but now the state government will take care of some, and I know that later the municipals and local government also will dive in later to be able to address power at a smaller level based on the current structure that will give them space to participate. But for the investors that are going to be participating, one of the key issues that still needs to be addressed is the issue of the transmission losses, which I believe that the investors will be looking at, and thefts, on how they're going to work on that due to the outgraded grid infrastructure there. The commissioner has mentioned that Lagos will need about $5 billion thereabout for necessary infrastructure gap. That's a lot of money from dollar point of view, but if you look at the consumption of what Nigerians consumed as at on item 6 in 2021 alone, Lagos businesses consumed and spent about 5 trillion on diesel and generators alone in that particular year. We are talking about almost $6.5 billion. So if you, when you talk about infrastructure requirements, about $5 billion, and you spend $6.5 billion in 1 year, you will realize that there's a gap and there's an opportunity in that ecosystem there. And we also know that the moment there's power, industrial productivity will improve, and the projected improvement is about $29 billion for Lagos State alone. Should there be available power to be able to? Of course, this will create a very, very good trajectory for economic impact in that particular space. The average electricity tariff internationally is about $0.5. And someone had mentioned the issue of purchasing power and some other parties in Nigeria and Lagos. We are hoping that the purchasing power will improve and that investors will be able to recoup their money back. And then one of the panelists had mentioned in style that maybe there will be subsidy. I will not subscribe to subsidy because when you start subsidizing, it brings in inefficiencies, and the investors will want to see a clear path to cash flow securitization and getting their cash flow back, not from subsidizing and palliatives there. My next slide speaks to the electricity bill, which the Honorable Commissioner has spoken to excellently, so I will not touch it. He spoke about the regulatory framework, he spoke about the energy efficiency, he spoke about independent power management, and he's spoken about market management too. And also the Lagos Electricity Regulatory Commission has spoken extensively in that space. Now, we are talking about electricity being tradable. Are we just trying to do that in Nigeria alone? No. It is an asset that's traded all over the world. And for us in Nigeria, in Lagos, we have supply-demand gaps of about 40% that's unmet. That is an opening for what can be done in Lagos. Before I run and move further, one of the few things that I'd like to mention about the Nigerian market and Lagos market is that most of the time people underrate Nigeria's market until they enter. When MTN came to Nigeria then, their projection was that they will be able to get 500,000 subscribers for their telephone lines. I'm sure that we all know that that's history now. MTN Nigeria is now their largest market in the whole world now. They know that this is a major market compared to what they have there. The number of penetration for telecoms in Nigeria is almost like 3 times of what they have over there. The same thing is going to repeat itself in the power sector now in Nigeria. And the good thing about that is that we are going to have what we call the first mover advantage. And the people that are here today, and I'm happy that the MD of United Capital had mentioned all the ones that they had done, and I'm happy that he has also said today that they'll be interested in the deal room. And that would, of course, be because they want to be part of the first mover advantage, to be able to address the supply gaps there. And we know that when there is a removal of operational efficiencies, particularly when private sector participation occurs, then you discover that it's easier for people to participate. We have a funding deficit for infrastructure of about $10 billion. We might think that those figures are big, but in reality, the revenue that comes from Lagos State is in excess of $10 billion when we come to the issues of infrastructure. The only thing we need to do is to put structure into it, and we'll start seeing the figures there. And like I mentioned earlier, at least there are 3 cases that electricity is being traded with a success story. We have the South African space, we have the European Union, and you have the United States. And in the United States, utilities earn about 12% revenue from electricity derivatives trading. 12%, that is a substantial amount of any economy. The European Union's day-ahead market trading was doing over 90% of electricity demand. It means that in the whole of the European Union, electricity trading was doing about 90%. And then we're talking about Lagos as the financial hub and the commerce for Nigeria now. We are trying to activate a sleeping giant. And I know that for the people that are going to do the first mover advantage, the revenues that they're going to get from this trading will be very, very large. And at the same time, the type of stakeholders and the ecosystem that this is going to create is going to surpass what Lagos State might even be anticipating. Power is actually bigger than telecoms. So if you go and look at the figures of what the telecom companies are doing in Nigeria, you will be able to imagine what power has to do in Nigeria, and particularly in Lagos. And we've seen what that has done in South Africa. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange launched the energy-specific bonds, and they were able to raise $500 million for renewable projects alone. That is even renewable, not an infrastructure. But what are the issues and the gaps? You know, the issue of low capital. And if you look at the figures there, because of time, I will not go, you see that there's still a deficit in both sides in the global space. And the same thing dovetails down into Lagos in Nigeria. And for Lagos, it's even more. And I know that as we're coming in now, we're going to grow. Now, what are the things that we need to do immediately to be able to, because these are going to be required by the Securities and Exchange Commission, investors and all that. What kind of structures we are going to use for trading? What kind of structures are going to be in the deal room or what we're going to be doing? There will be outright privatization of some, as is going on now. Some institutions have bought over certain distribution companies in Lagos as we speak there. There will be public-private partnerships there. I'd hope that someone that is an expert in PPP was going to be around today, because whether we like it or not, the moment you are bringing the public sector and the private sector together, it becomes a public-private partnership. That will have to happen because all the assets belong to government as of now. We have had investors and countries here today that will be looking at foreign direct investments. Quietly here, the Consular General, ably represented, was here for UAE. They are having special focus on energy for Lagos in particular. And I think one of the ones that has been concluded earlier also was originated from their own side. And of course, we have development financing. We have tariff reforms. Any of the financing methods that we have here, you will have to refinance them, one, And there has to be an exit strategy of payback arrangement. The only underlying payback arrangement is retail. That is revenue from people using it on a daily basis, creating products around it so that we'll be able to pay back those people. And for you to be able to do that, to be able to, issue bonds and all that, of course, one of the things that we're doing today is capacity building. Now, how do we raise money? All the things that we've been speaking about. The bottom line of what we're trying to do is cash flow securitization. Cash flow securitization is purely the receivables that Lagos State is expecting from power generation, power distribution, and power usage. Whatever cash flow that's going to be coming from there, can we securitize it, turn it into products that investors can put money into so that Lagos can get their monies up front? And I have specialists here today that are giving special attention to that. We have SCM Capital here. We have GTI here. There are group MDs there. The GMD of SCM is here. They're listening attentively because when we create a deal room like GTI, like a Unique Capital, UBA is doing, these are the people that are going to be mobilizing the capital into that ecosystem. They're here listening attentively here. Now, when you want to do cash flow securitization, it gives you access to capital. You have a risk and mitigation, and you can scale it up, scalability, and of course the financial viability will come in. And what that does for us is that you'll be able to bring in diverse investors. Like the Honorable Commissioner had mentioned, it's not about the capital markets alone. There will be FDIs coming in. There will be even interventions by the government. There will be grants in some cases for renewable energy. And all this will require investor confidence. And lastly, for the social side of it, we will have to look at rural electrification also to be able to reach out to everybody in such a way that there's inclusion at every level. Now, for the electricity specialists, for people that want to trade, there are 3 parts that we're going to be proposing that we'll be working with. The first one is the electricity futures and options. We'll get to that later after we get our full approval from the Securities and Exchange Commission. The DG will be represented by the Executive Commissioner has said that they will give approval to that if we bring it to them. They will have the renewable energy certificates for it to be tradable so that people can be cashing out on green bonds there. Then the key one is the day-ahead intraday markets. By the time this markets the deal room is special, you'll be able to see where people on daily basis, let me not use the word like that. If I use it, people might misinterpret, so I won't use it. On daily basis, whereby you can put your money into the electricity space, buy electricity as an investment, not for usage, and make a particular amount of money on daily basis. And that will create another access to investment for Lagosians. I stay in one part of Lagos, and I went on a street in Lagos, one single street. I saw 47 shopping malls on one street, and the 47 shopping malls were all trying to sell clothes. Where I'm saying there is that Nigerians, Lagosians are still looking for outlets to invest. If they don't see, they will go into shopping malls and be selling clothes only there. Now, the role of LCFE in the electricity space is we are going to guide and midwife the electricity contracts. We are going to create market transparency, and like we're doing today, and putting our first leg in, we're going to do stakeholder management, and of course, we're going to put the risking instrument in space for hedging instruments against volatility, and we're going to promote competition in that space there. For us as a catalyst in that ecosystem, we're going to be looking at the green bonds energy. We are going to look at infrastructure funds. We have some investment officers here. And of course, we look at securitization of cash flow. And lastly, we'll look at the potential yield, because investors, when they come in, what they want to see, like someone said, the bottom line is money. And of course, for some, they will look at how do we see credit guarantees participating in this ecosystem. So for us, we are going to bring in increased liquidity into the system. We are going to have revenue diversification in Lagos State. We're going to do risk mitigation for you, and we're going to have job creation. I'll move straight to the deal room. So what the deal room will do is it will be specific to every transaction, and easily when you go into the deal room, you'll be able to do measurement of what is applicable for any project there. It's time-bound. Investors will be able to come in and leave at any point in time, and it's relevant to Lagos State's projects for this particular electricity space. So I'll move lastly to the last slide, just to show that we are ready. Second to the last slide before thank you. Go straight down, down, down. Yeah, so this is what the bus is going to look like, Honorable Commissioner. And by the time we send the details to our regulator, Apex Regulatory Sec, we are going to have we call it LERQ, that is LCFE, Lagos Commodity and Futures Exchange, electronic receipts quotation for electricity commercial papers, then electricity receivables, buy and sell, then for metering contracts, then power distribution contracts, power generation contracts, power infrastructure contracts, and renewable energy contracts. People will be able to, by the time we start listing them, to be able to trade on any of these on intra-trade basis on daily basis. In anticipation about how we start and to be able to move ahead, we are going to send our own proposals and request them to the Securities and Exchange Commission through the investment bankers that are here. And like I mentioned, we have 2 of them that are listening in today. We have SCM Capital here, ably led by the Group Managing Director, Mr. Gaventa Otono. We have GTI here, group here, ably represented by Alhaji Abubakar Lawal, the Group Managing Director. Honorable Commissioner for Power, Honorable Commissioner for Finance, I thank you very much for having me here today. And the MC has given me the right to be able to invite the chairman of the session, the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Mr. Oluyomi Abayami, to come to the stage. Thank you. You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
All right, please, let's put our hands together for our MD for that fantastic presentation. And right now, what we are going to quickly do, because like I said, we appreciate every single one of us who has been a part of this today, and we're grateful that you are even here, even up until this time. And I'll just quickly invite those who will join them on the final panel session, which promises to not just be brief, but it is going to be supersonic brief. That is, I'd like to invite the Executive Director of InfraCredit, Mr. Daniel Mueller. Executive Director of InfraCredit, Mr. Daniel Mueller. Thank you very much for being here. And of course, our Managing Director, CEO, LCFE, Mr. Akishola Akeredolu Ale, will be joining them as well. Unfortunately, we've not been, the MD of CSCS, Mr. Haruna Jallo Waziri, was unable to make this meeting today, but we'll continue as we welcome the GMD of GTI, Mr. Abubakar Lawal. Please let's put our hands together for him quickly. And the final panelist on this next panel is the Group Managing Director of SCM Capital, Mr. Gaventa Otono.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a wonderful and fantastic day. A lot has been said. So, you know, we listened to the Managing Director of Lagos Commodities and Futures Market. He said a lot of things. In fact, as a matter of fact, he has actually addressed some of the things we'll be talking about at this particular session. So I know that he's done a lot of homework. So my job has been made relatively very easy for me. So I will just dive into asking them necessary questions, of course, which he has explained. So I'm going to start from him, okay? MD CEO. Okay, so let me ask you this question. I know that, you know, you have said a lot, particularly as far as the deal room is concerned. We also know that no matter what we talk about, without money, we cannot do much. So a lot of has been said around the regulatory environment about, the governance structure and every other thing. But right now, it is the money that is most important. And we know that that's one of the elements that has been missing in providing clean energy in Lagos State. So funding, financing, and liquidity is very, very key. So let me start by asking Mr. Akeredolu my first question. Okay, I know you addressed some of them, but of course, for the benefit of the people listening, you probably need to go over this again. So what is the potential role of your company in facilitating the transition to a cleaner electricity market in Lagos?
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. First of all, we are duly registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we follow the rules and regulations of SEC. And one of our major functions as an organization, as an SRO, a self-regulatory organization, is advocacy, capacity building, bringing transparency, and de-risking the environment. So I'll speak particularly about de-risking the environment. De-risking the environment is to be able to create instruments that are acceptable to investors, that they'll be comfortable investing in them, because they know that whatever they are investing in is being regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and also it will have passed through the exchange through the risk management grid of the exchange. And what the exchange will do is to create liquidity into any of the investments that are created on its bourse. And then when you talk about liquidity, we see there's one part that has to do with the capital liquidity. That is for you to be able to, you want to invest in a particular thing. Is there enough liquidity for you to be able to invest in it? And when you want to exit by way of investment, is there a liquidity position whereby there are other people trying to buy from you? The third leg of it is liquidity in the sense of the asset itself. Is it available? We might not know, but there's pent-up, quiet demand of over 60 years on people that have always wanted to invest in power in Nigeria. And they want to invest in structured products that are fungible and that are from institutions that are very, very reliable with credibility. And the number one institution in Nigeria as of now, by way of credit rating and capacity to raise capital in Nigeria now, is Lagos State. And effectively, those are the things that investors will be looking out for. And our own role is to make sure we midwife this arrangement towards the investors and showcase the beautiful product from the Lagos State.
Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful answer. Okay, so what the NSS is saying is that liquidity is king. Liquidity is like the blood in our bodies. Without the blood, human beings will die. So liquidity is very, very key in this electricity market. As a follow-up question to that, so what are the key challenges facing your company in fulfilling your role, and how can these challenges be addressed?
Thank you. The key challenge that the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange has been facing is, I would describe as paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift in what we call a green market, a new market, a green field. Allows a situation whereby everybody that you speak to at the beginning will be sitting on the fence, because this is a type of transaction that has not occurred before in Nigeria that they're not used to. Our capital markets, our money markets are used to equities and bonds alone, and that's what they understand. Then all of a sudden you are trying to bring in commodities contracts into this space. Since they don't understand it, the tendency is that some people will see it on the fence. But when they see it growing, they will jump into the fray. But particularly for now, we have the issue of data. And data in Nigeria is not data that you have, it's verifiable data, scientific data that people can use for decision making. If you say that you want to trade electricity in Nigeria now, and for Lagos State now, and you bring in foreign investors to come and trade in it, the first thing that they're going to be asking is, do you have verifiable or scientific data that we can use as a basis for making these decisions to be able to invest in this particular product? But we know also in Nigeria and Lagos that we don't know which one comes first, whether the chicken or the egg. But in reality, someone has to start it from somewhere so that we can grow it and start having the data. So those are the challenges. And one of the things that we're going to get out of this is that from the deal room now onwards, data will be generated on electricity trades in Lagos, so that in the future, you can say that this is the scientific data for this. Honorable Commissioner, I would like to add something to that. There was an acquisition of a company for $1 billion about 2 weeks ago in a particular ecosystem, not in electricity space. And I looked at the valuation. The valuation of that company was based on data on the fact that 19 to 35-year-olds in Nigeria, the youthful population, constitutes the better part of people in Nigeria, and Nigeria has about 230 million people that are consuming food every day. And because of that, that investment was done, and a particular company took it over. We need verifiable data, and we have to start it from somewhere. Those are one of the major challenges and a paradigm shift. Thank you.
Okay, MD, very, very interesting. This is an interesting time, honestly speaking. I am very happy to be part of this particular process. And of course, when they say, an event or a part of history is pivotal, this is a pivotal moment in Nigeria. And I must commend you on what you are doing. This is something that we need in this particular environment. So my next question will go to Mr. Abubakar Lawal. Mr. Lawal, the GMD of GTI. So from your own point of view, what are the key investment opportunities for financial institutions like yours in the Clean Lagos electricity market?
Thank you very much, everyone. It is quite very simple. What we are building here today is like an elephant that has different parts. And if you look at the different parts here, electricity ecosystem, you have the generation, you have the distribution, you have, the transmission leg of it. You have renewable, you have the traditional energy deliverable. As if that is not enough, you now have the financial leg to it, which is the market that is having an exchange, a handshake now. So in the market space where liquidity is going to be delivered, you have the opportunity for capital formation. Okay, for capital to be formed, it is the mix of this hardcore sector that is going to be come together to make a substantive product that will lead to the desired yield that an average investor is looking for. So if you ask me, what is my role beyond liquidity is to first of all be able to appreciate those components that makes the market in the first place and be able to provide an enablement for the handshake. And that is the role of the capital market, and such that every stakeholder becomes happy in this equation. Central to it is liquidity. So GTI and all the other practitioners, the jigsaw is very clear, and to see how we can be in the mix to be able to deliver required liquidity by coming up in the market with different kind of products. Different products, you have the green bonds, you have the infrastructure fund, you have we raise all manner of funds to package to be able to deliver of this very important assignment. So my role is quite very clear, and thank you very much.
Mr. Abubakar Lawal, thank you so much. So in essence, he's telling us that there are limitless investment opportunities in the market, by way of structured products. So for me, it's very important, and I think the managing director also said it, that let us get involved from the onset, to take to make use of the first mover advantage. Right now, it's still like a brownfield, but because they've done a lot of work, so you cannot call it a greenfield. It's a brownfield. They've done a lot of work. I've seen the financial infrastructure that they have built for making those structured products tradable. So thank you, Mr. Lawal, for that comment. Now let me go to Mr. Daniel Muller. Executive Director of Infra Credit. You know, they are the ones that make things work by providing the necessary credit enhancement to support some of these products. Mr. Muller, what are the key lessons learned from other jurisdictions regarding the role of commodity exchanges in supporting the transition to a cleaner energy market? Thank you.
Okay, as far as commodity exchanges, that's not my expertise, but I can speak generally on that side. So what we do is unlock access to long-term debt finance, 10-year, 15-year, 20 years. That's what our guarantees unlock and have done so for the last 7 or 8 years here in Nigeria. And that's the kind of long-term funding that most infrastructure projects need. You usually can't repay these investments in 5 years. So what we're really doing is working with pension funds, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and enabling these infrastructure investors to issue a 15 or 20-year debt instrument. And North-South Power is a good example. They issued a 15-year green bond back in 2019 on the back of our guarantee. So you start to bring in that patient capital so that we can actually have these large-scale investments into the sector. As far as the role of the commodities exchange, again, it's very difficult initially when we don't have enough supply. You want to have a great product where everyone is confident that, oh, I can actually prepay or I can enter into a forward agreement and I can get access and I don't have to worry about my price changing for the next 6 months. I still think we're kind of far away from that, but in the near term, the commodity exchange can be another enabler in the market. Willing buyer, willing seller. This is relatively new. People want power. They don't know who to ask to get power. They know they can't build a power plant themselves for their community. But if, so that is one role I believe initially the commodities exchange can play, is basically bringing in these requests for power from different neighborhoods in the community. Again, that could come from the commission, that could come from the ministry, but it can also come from the commodities exchange. Say, wait, we want to pair up buyers and sellers. We'll take a little fee, as we do on any trade, when we're able to link up buyers and sellers, right? And that can start to enable projects. But let me frame it in one way. Lagos is only receiving about 28% of power from the grid today. Even though we're the most viable market, and Eko and Ikeja are the only discos nearly paying or always paying their bill in full. The last data I saw, they were paying over 95% of their bills every month. So in terms of viability, we're in the best market for it. Yet, we're only receiving 950 megawatts per hour from the grid. So there may be an opportunity to bring in more power from other plants that are underproducing today. A lot of the NIPPs, even Egbin was showing it only producing about 500 megawatts as of Q3 last year. So that's a top-down approach to try to bring in more power to the state, to a viable market already. And then a lot of bottom-up investment. Where do we always lack investment? It's not even the generation or the metering. It's in the lines. Even at 200 Naira tariff, Band A, we still have outages. And the discos are trying to prioritize those customers, and we're still struggling. So we still have dissatisfied customers across the state, even with the discos trying their best. So there needs to be a mobilization of investment into lines and transformers, and that means the financiers are going to want access to those last mile cash flows. And that's really the biggest investment area I think we need to be working. If we're not mobilizing investment into the distribution side, then we're just going to run into the same constraint that we've always had. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. For that very, very clear explanations. I think Mr. Gaventa Otono. Well, I mean, it's very interesting that, as said by the managing director, that we have a lot of investment banks or investment bankers in the room. And of course, they are part of the people that are very, very central to this electricity market. So, Mr. Otono, as a managing director of an investment bank, what role can financial innovation play in mobilizing capital for clean energy projects in Lagos?
Okay. I think these are interesting times to be in Lagos, particularly. This new energy law, I think, is coming right on time. And the prospects are huge. Now, as an investment bank, what is it that we can do in this area, in the area of financial innovation. Throughout the sessions that we have seen today, the presentations we have seen, I think I acknowledge the level of work that has been done to bring this to this stage. And anybody who has listened through would know and be encouraged that the prospects for this project is real. It's looking more real to me than it has ever been. And it's a wonderful opportunity to listen to all of the presentations made today. And in all of them, I see that every aspect of the entire value chain has been very well detailed. Very, very well detailed. Although there are some concerns we won't talk about here. But what I feel that financial innovation is very key. The MD mentioned a lot of products, the green bonds, the climate bonds, and in addition to the traditional products that will finance the hard assets, like the power stations, the transmission infrastructure, and the like. But securitization is one area that we think that we utilize extensively to provide that liquidity that the whole system needs. Power purchase contracts were talked about largely today. And in one of the sessions, I listened to somebody from Olaniwajai who said, follow the law. Follow the law. And that's very important because the legal framework is what everybody is looking up to guarantee certain behaviors and certain standards. And once those standards are maintained, are kept, what you find is that you build confidence. And once that confidence is built, when you begin to bring products, people know that these products certainly will be able to fulfill the objective for which you are investing. Don't forget one thing that is very important, access to capital. That is the capital formation that everybody has talked about today through the exchange. But in addition to that, one thing I will say is the allocation of this capital must be one area we will consider very, very critical. Coming to this event, one of the things that was on my mind was the issue of the last mile. Because the biggest problem that I see in this whole ecosystem is the last mile. What is it that will be put in place to make that last mile viable? If that last mile works, every other thing will work. And that goes back to the products and the innovation, the innovative products that we will create. Because without those products seeing the end, where the cash to cash is guaranteed, we may struggle. But I'm very, very happy seeing what has been done. I think it's been a lot of dimensioning has been done, and a lot of work, again I say, has also been done to ensure that that aspect, which is one of the lessons learned from what we have had at the national level, is taken care of. So that enables us to create products, whether they are wholesale products, whether they are retail products, whether they are targeted at specific institutions or otherwise. People must see the end from the beginning. And once people see the end from the beginning, then it's a lot easier to create those products around the entire ecosystem. But like I said, the hard assets, pretty straightforward and traditional. Electricity trading, quite new. It's going to be new around our environment here. But I also say something, the LCFE has done a lot in the commodity space. We have quite, a reasonable experience in dealing with them on the introduction of products. The first mover advantage that he talked about, I think is real. And I sit here to say that we've participated in a couple of deals with the LCFE, though in other areas, but the experience that we've built in those areas, we can extend to the electricity market. The electricity market is quite a dynamic market. It's a market that we all do need, is needed. It's the structuring, both from the policy standpoint, the legal standpoint, and also the markets where these assets will be traded. There are a lot of electricity-backed assets that can be introduced. I talked about the power purchase agreements that can be securitized. Receivables can also be securitized. So we have a whole realm of products and assets that we can throw into this market that will make the market interesting for investors. And the risk mitigation as well, which is critical for every product that you bring. What people will find, what is the risk associated with this, other than the return? I'm sure the risk mitigation that the various agencies have provided for us today, I think they address those issues largely. But maybe when we come to the specifics, we need to design other things around them. InfraCredit is here. I'm sure they're going to play a big role. And we also think that, some of this collateral management will also be required to make sure that everybody, meets his or her obligation when due. But the system also that has been put forward, where there is a central collection and monies are distributed cascaded down the line, I think that also provides some level of security. But it's ensuring that the cash-to-cash cycle, that there's a line of sight to where that money will come from that user, which covers a whole lot of other things, including affordability, availability, predictability, and all those variables that investors look up to in making their investment decisions. So there are quite a number of products that are ready for the market, and I believe that the market is also ready to receive these products. Thank you.
Mr. Otono, thank you so much for all the comments that you have made. I'm sure our audience, they are taking particular notice of all these things that are being said. This particular question, one way or the other, has been sort of addressed, by one person or the other, particularly at this forum. But I will still have to throw the question to the three of you. And of course, I'll give you like a minute each to address this question. Like I said, you have addressed it in a way in your, but I just want to zero in on this particular one. And the question is, what are the key considerations for investors when assessing investment opportunities in the Clean Lagos electricity market? What do the investors look for? What are their primary considerations? I want each and every one of you to address this question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. To begin with, the first consideration for an average investor is the legal framework. I mean, the gentleman that's going to put his money is going to be very sure that, look, it's well thought through, the legal framework is in place to protect him. That's the first one. And that legal framework is going to speak to the fluidity of the market, end-to-end market, the investor would like to see. Second of it is the exit strategy for an average investor. If I'm going to put my money in a scheme, I'd like to see whether it is a private scheme or public scheme, how I'm going to be able to, at the end of that cycle, retire my liquidity. The third of it is to say that, look, the kind of experience that has come into that market. I mean, this is a very young market, for example. So it means the risk consideration is going to be a bit up north. And so an average investor that is bringing his money, we have to take a second look at that. And there are several other considerations. For example, again, the products that are in that market, the vehicle that is going to deliver the investment that the gentleman or the institution is going to put its money. And finally, the yield curve. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you. I'll categorize two types of investors, right? Because we're backing infrastructure companies. So there are those companies that have unrealistic expectations. They just want to come in and get a guaranteed payment for offtake, take or pay. It doesn't matter if you consume the power or not. Lagos State should pay me for my capacity. And they may even think that there should be a guarantee on the gas supply and the gas supplier should pay them if they fail to deliver the molecules. And it's just not realistic for our market. It's not how our market is structured. So when people come with those kind of projects, we usually struggle to engage with them. We say, you have to go further. You have to have a satisfied end customer. So those are the projects that we usually look at. Investors who are saying, I know my end customer. I know when I make this investment here to put this plant and inject into these lines, and I serve these customers and have this communication framework with them, I will satisfy them. So I have to invest in generation and distribution and metering and customer service. So they want to know their ultimate end customer, and they understand that there are thousands of end customers. Those investors we like to back. Their biggest risk is the input supply. That's what we have to evaluate as a financier. Are they going to have adequate gas supply, or is it a challenge? Or if they're buying from a different IPP and they only want to do the distribution, again, do they have adequate assurance of supply? So that's the risk we like to evaluate. Is this a good place to put a gas plant? Is this a good place to receive input power to supply a community? Those are the investors we like to work with. They're worried about the input supply, whether it's gas or power. Thank you.
Well, I think this is pretty straightforward for me, in the sense that any investor, anybody who wants to invest, resources, is looking in the direction of the return, first and foremost. That is top line. And that is a major consideration. And for CLEM, that also affects the entire value chain from generation to collection. I'm not talking about generation to distribution now. And going back to what I had said before, is to ensure that I'm able to provide a service that there is offtake for, and that offtake is able to pay me a reasonable return for the risks that I'm going to take. Now, the mitigants for those risks are very, very important. Very, very important. And I'm, outside of this, I also want to add, by way of suggestion to LASEC, one of the things that the lessons learned that I think we need to take, and from other jurisdictions as well, is the capacity of the entities that you are licensing for any role in the entire value chain. That is very, very critical. That technical capacity, the financial capacity, and all the associated legal frameworks are very important, because an investor can be at any point in the value chain. But it must be ensured that all of them being integrated are working together to achieve the objectives of every investor in any aspect of the business. So the risk mitigants are very important, because I need to be sure that I'm able to get my money out, because there's opportunity cost for money. So if I invest in this asset or in this service, can I get something better in another asset class? Those considerations are there. I don't know if the private investors are so socially oriented to say that, yes, let's do it. We can do with a little of this. I don't think the investors from the other side think that way. They think we want a reasonable return for our investment. And this whole system, because it's integrated, if one aspect fails, the entire system fails. So we need to watch through the entire chain to see that everybody in that chain gets a reasonable return, and ultimately the investor who is at the end of it will also receive a reasonable return. The return is very important. The risks are also important. And sometimes, again, I remember when they talked about subsidies in one of the sessions. And I beg to say that any investment in the private, in this sector that we're going to talk about subsidies, I really will pull back, because that should not be the idea. It shouldn't be the idea. The capacity that is present in Lagos is just enough if it's appropriately priced, because competition brings efficiency. And that's one of the things we need to know. When the market, as the market develops, yes, it's going to certainly have teething problems. The investors have to be patient as well. And that's why the kind of capital they need to access must be some kind of patient long-term capital. That's critical. So we need to understand that it will evolve, and that's been roundly said, that we need teething problems. But ultimately, the journey looks very, very, very bright. It's quite interesting. And because this is something that we need, we don't have any business investing how much. Look at the CAPEX and the OPEX for generators last year, as put up here a few minutes ago, in trillions. You don't need that. That's the most inefficient way to do stuff. However, the issue of the returns, I think the returns are guaranteed. The liquidity is also very, very key to any investor, and the LCFE is there to provide, that liquidity. So I think it's from this point on, based on what we have seen, I think there's a huge potential in the clear markets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gaventa, Mr. Lawal, and Mr. Otono. For me, I mean, I've heard a lot of interesting things being said around this table. Of course, as far as investors are concerned, they're looking at commercial consideration. But the good thing about this clean energy is that we also have a huge potential of investors, a huge pool of investors who are also impact investors. So apart from the commercial consideration, we also have those that are also looking for projects that are impactful, social projects and all of that to invest in. So thank you for all of those things. And I also would like to add, before I ask him the final question, because it's the anchor. It's very interesting, when I heard about securitization, because it's also one of the things that we're doing in Lagos State right now. As a matter of fact, we're all aware that in Lagos we have trillions of idle assets, which we are trying as much as possible to monetize and release liquidity. Whether those assets are cash-generating assets or they are also non-fixed assets that are non-depreciating. So we have a pool of those assets, and it's very, very, very nice for me to hear that, okay, a lot of the things happening to release liquidity in this particular electricity market will also involve securitization. I think the MD and I, we've had that conversation once, and so it makes it very, very, very plausible. And this, like we said at the beginning, Lagos State is the driver, and I want to thank the Honorable Commissioner for Energy seated there, and I also would like to say that we in Lagos, our Lagos State government is ready, having started with the governance structure and all the other regulatory environment, we're ready to put our force behind it, As a state, we are the only AAA rated state in Nigeria. So we are ready to put our AAA rating behind this electricity market to make it happen. So, and I must commend the infrastructure that the MD has also. They must have invested a lot in it. We know it's a lot of money to make it work, but Lagos State is ready for that, and we will do the needful. And we have, capable people with capacity, as partners, like InfraCredit, for instance, where there's a need for a little bit of sweetener. They are ready to provide that sweetener to make sure that it works. But to be sincere with us, this is a very, very huge thing. This is just also one of the missing ingredients in Nigeria in terms of driving the growth and development of our economy, in terms of providing jobs for our teeming populations. Every time I hear this statistic that over 70% of the Nigerian population are below 30 years, I'm always scared. And the question is, how are we going to get jobs for all these people? This is one of it. Today, if we have energy in Lagos, if we have ready-made electricity in Lagos that supply power, what will happen. It's a catalyst, just like they said, to a lot of things. It's a catalyst to growth and development. It's a catalyst to industrialization. It's a catalyst to employment opportunities and a lot of all those things. But watch it. Lagos, be ready for one thing. Today, we say we have thousands of people coming in from all over Nigeria, even all over the world to Lagos. When this is done and dusted, let me assure you, you will have millions of people migrating to Lagos State. And as a government, we also try as much as possible to proactively to make sure that we are ready for that. We're also partnering with every other state, particularly in the Governors Forum, to make sure that we don't leave them behind. So that as Lagos is developing, all other states too are developing. That's the only way we can make Nigeria work, because this small space cannot take the whole population of Nigeria. So on this note, I would like to ask the MD the last question. Mr. MD, how can your company leverage your platform? You've said this before, but I need you to, to state this in closing. I want people to hear you very clearly. How can your company leverage its platform to encourage investment in renewable energy? We'll be talking about electricity, and there are a lot of other renewable energy sources that we have. So how can your company leverage your platform to encourage investment in renewable energy projects within Clean Lagos initiative? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner. About 12 or 13 months ago, we received a call from the Securities and Exchange Commission from a legal unit, Mr. Kalausa, legal. And he said, LCFE, come up with a product for renewable energy, for clean energy. We want to trade carbon-based transactions and all that. The reason why they wanted to do it is because in the global space now, there is an opportunity for carbon credits whereby you can trade it. And it's something that's real, that people are participatory in. Now, our role is we are regarded as an SRO, that is self-regulatory organization, that's supposed to focus on advocacy, compliance to regulatory framework. And at the same time, when we're doing advocacy, we have to create what we call the proof of concepts. The proof of concepts are what we do to activate any particular ecosystem so that the various participants can understand that it's possible. And what we have done is, for example, in gold, nobody believed that gold could come from Nigeria or we could mint gold. We now trade gold on the exchange. And we're very happy that when we're going to launch the gold, it was the Executive Governor of Lagos State that came to launch it. We have made it possible that it's possible for you to trade on commodities contracts. To the extent that we bring transparency and price discovery, we've been able to do that. We are doing that now for power sector. And I'm also happy that you have mentioned that there are idle assets that can generate revenue that need to be securitized. The same thing is a potential in Lagos State for the to be tradable. And one of the things that we're doing is we're going to be listing that we're going to be creating that boss on our platform. And when we create that boss on our platform, it becomes easy for people to come and trade on it. And you wonder why we have not pushed it to a logical conclusion yet. The reason why we have not pushed it to a logical conclusion yet is still because of a legal framework. We have just inserted that particular asset into the ISA for it to be described and defined as a commodity. It's when that ISA is passed and it's now defined as a commodity, that is when the legal framework kicks in, which gives us the legality to be able to trade it on the exchange. If not, we'll have put into it. But for now, what we're still putting together is for people to participate at the OTC level. There are so many carbon trading exchanges all over the world that if you want to do that and you have an evidence and a register for it to be able to do it, you can do the trading and they credit your account with it. Now, to bring it closer, we now have such in Lagos State. And the Consul General that left, she spoke briefly about wind energy, renewable energy, conversion of waste to energy and some other things. If Lagos State is at the forefront of what we're trying to do in clean energy, I know easily we'll get a waiver from the Securities and Exchange Commission to go ahead. And if you heard the SEC DG today, ably represented by the Commissioner for Operations, he said, bring it in, we will fast forward it, speed it up, and that is actually a low-hanging fruit for this particular massacre in Lagos. Now, the other issue that I'll just mention briefly, one of those companies that are not here today is that a particular bank went out of their way to cloud their whole building, and they are now off the grid, and they're generating their own electricity on their own. Apart from that, also they are also taking they'll be taking benefits of the carbon saving part of it also, and they'll be remitting that to them. Lagos State has so many lovely large buildings that by the time you start getting to that clean energy points, from waste to energy to wind energy to the others, we are going to see that there's going to be large potential for revenue to the ministries of energy, to the Ministry of Finance, and of course also improve the agile of Lagos. Particularly this time around, we are talking about FX repatriation into this ecosystem. This entity called Lagos State, which you have said is AAA rated, I know that easily by the time you decide to securitize only your power assets alone, just your power assets alone, that is enough for the whole of the capital market to chew in the next 3 years. And if these power assets take up for Lagos State, because Lagos is always at the forefront, you know the multiplier effect on the other states around Lagos, and particularly the federal government of Nigeria. And that's why we're hoping today, and I'm happy that you are chairing this session, and the Honorable Commissioner for Energy is here, spearheading this at the forefront, and we have major investment bankers here. I would like to just make one comment in addition to what you have said about the issue of input at the beginning and the issue of the various components of a power space where infra credit can work. What I see on this table here is a typical deal room. This is a deal room whereby we can sit together, start on a deal from beginning to the end, bring it to fruition, activate it, and let it work. The only thing that we're doing now is the government now decided to let this one work, and I'm very happy that we're going to have that deal room going, and the products are going to start immediately. Rome was not built in a day, so we're not expecting that everything will become perfect from ground zero. But we'll build it up, look at the metering level, look at the current receivables, convert the receivables to cash flows. Lagos can collect their monies up front from receivables, plow the money into healthcare, education, or apply into more power assets as we activate this ecosystem. Thank you, Honorable Commissioner.
Thank you so much. Can we give him a round of applause, please? Well, I mean, the day is fast spent. I don't want to repeat a lot of things that have been said, but let me encourage our youthful population not to jackpot again. Things are beginning to happen. You have to be here, okay? So just be rest assured. And as Lagos State, we have decided to take the bull by the horn. Definitely, with your support and with your collaboration, we'll try and make it happen. On this note, I would like to say a very big thank you to Mr. Gaventa Otono, my friend and my brother. I haven't seen in a long time. Mr. Mula, thank you for coming. I thank you for your insight. Mr. Lawa, good to see you. And I hope that you will continue to be active participants in this journey. Like he said, during the regulation of the telecom industry, we had some company who started their journey. They started their story, they started telling their stories, they started writing their stories. Today, their stories have become history. Today, when you are talking about MTN, it's part of the history of Nigeria. So, this electricity market too, we have started the story. Everybody has started telling the story. We have the market operators, we have the investment bankers, we have the guarantee providers, and of course we have the infrastructural provider. Each person has been telling their own story. And we know that in a not too distant future, the story will become history, embedded in the history of Nigeria. So thank you so much for coming. God bless you all. A round of applause, please.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I think what we're going to do now is just to invite the chairman of LCFE to please join the panelists for that picture. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And yes, please bear with me. I would like the Honorable Commissioner for Energy, Lagos State. Please, we would like you to also join them. Apologies. That's been, I believe that's been a protocol miss on my part. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So I know very well that at this time, breakfast has basically digested, and we are all going to find a way to get lunch in the best ways possible. But I'd like us to know that we are now coming to a close. We're coming to a close, and to bring this to a close with a short remark, I'd like to invite the Permanent Secretary of the Lagos State Ministry of Energy, Mineral Resources, Engineer Abiola Kosegbe. Oh, Kosegbe. Oh, okay. All right. Engineer Abiola Kosegbe, the Permanent Secretary of the Lagos State Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources.
Good afternoon, everyone. Time is fast spent, so permit me to stand on the already established protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The single step for Lagos State was the signing of the electricity law by Mr. Governor on the 3rd of December 2024. It sets the foundation for a well-structured, transparent, and investor-friendly electricity market. It is the basis for the setting up of the Lagos Electricity Regulatory Commission and other operational institutions. As we bring today's insightful and impactful discussions to a close, I would like to express my profound gratitude to all our esteemed speakers, panelists, and participants who have contributed their wealth of knowledge to the topic. The conversations held today have underscored the importance of strategic investment, robust regulatory frameworks, and innovative financing models in building a competitive and sustainable electricity market. Lagos State remains committed to fostering an enabling environment that attracts private sector participation, strengthens investor confidence, and ultimately delivers reliable and affordable electricity to our people. As mentioned earlier, a few expressions of interest have already been released, greenfields and gas-fired, and in the coming weeks, one for brownfield will also be published. This provides opportunities for existing investors to strengthen their market position while also creating space for new investors to participate. And just to note that the new electricity law, with the new electricity law, there will be continuous stakeholders engagement, advocacy, training, many more of these types of sittings. Also in the coming weeks, we will be hosting a huge gathering, hoping to bring together all the players, intending players in the sector for more interaction. In order for Lagos to get it right, we recognize the importance of collaboration. On behalf of the Lagos State Ministry of Environment and Mineral Resources, I thank Mr. Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, for his visionary leadership in driving energy reforms in the state. I also want to commend the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange for the partnership in organizing this commendable event, along with our esteemed partners from the capital markets and power sector for their invaluable contributions as we all gear towards driving the CLEM. Let us leave here today with a renewed commitment to translating ideas into actionable solutions that will power the growth and prosperity of Lagos State. Thank you all for your time and your contributions. I look forward to continued engagement as we drive the clean Lagos electricity market forward. Safe travels and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, we come to the close for this fantastic meeting, which is the okay. Okay. All right, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'd like to say thank you for your time today. And with that, we come to the close of the Lagos Electricity Investment Deal Room. We'd like to say thank you to all the participants and all the stakeholders who have come from across all sectors. We'd like to say thank you to the gentlemen of the press who have also been here. Thank you very much. And now that we have all received this fantastic information and exposition about the possibilities within the capital market, particularly concerning the Lagos electricity market, making it clean, making it profitable to investors and even consumers alike, we would like to say thank you very much. We would also like to charge you to keep tabs with the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange so that you can take advantage of everything possible in the capital market regarding commodities and even beyond. The goal is always to increase the GDP and the IGR of Nigeria, and they have competent officials and leaders who are leading that drive. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is LG Olalekan Adeshino, and it's been a privilege being the anchor for this wonderful deal room. I look forward to more engagements with you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Lagos State is a place for us. Lagos State is a place for us. No matter the distance, Lagos State is a place for us. Gbogbo yín mo kí lálárí kẹ́nìkan. Ọmọ Òṣòdì gbogbo yín mo kí lálárí kẹ́nìkan.